Chapter 48-53. After Yu Hua and the rest entered, they did not dare to delay and hurriedly flew to their respective areas. There were some children who had already been identified and seemed to be going through the second round of identification. Sigh. Xiao Hua sighed. For some reason, he thought of the situation when he entered the Imperial Thunder Sect. Xue Xue's smile appeared spontaneously. This was his and Xue Xue's shared experience. Whether it was Fairy Xianxia or Princess Xia, they did not. Nua Yeqing stood by Xiao Hua's side and observed his expression. When she saw Xiao Hua's expression, she immediately shut her mouth and did not dare to make any more noise. She also looked at the main hall with worry. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, in the area closest to Xiao Hua, 4 children had already been identified. Nua Yeqing could clearly see that these 4 children's aptitudes were all ordinary. Not even 30% of the brilliance of the ruler-shaped magic tool had flashed. Furthermore, in order to confirm, the golden core cultivator at the side brought the child who had the highest brilliance to one side and used a spell to examine carefully. However, the results still disappointed the golden core cultivator. Sigh. Nua Yeqing could not help but sigh. Her voice was unexpectedly filled with vicissitudes, similar to Xiao Hua's sigh. Xiao Hua glanced at Nua Yeqing and said calmly, "What's wrong? Are you sighing because your sect can't find disciples with good aptitudes?" Nua Yeqing opened her mouth, wanting to say something. However, looking at Vice Palace Master Yun on the high platform, she swallowed her words. After thinking for a while, she opened her mouth and said, "Yes, Senior. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth has changed. On the Yilin continent, not only is it difficult for cultivators to cultivate, it is also difficult to find disciples. I heard from my master that when they were selecting disciples, it was not so troublesome. Outstanding disciples would often appear. Now that these children are born with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, their aptitudes have changed. It is simply not easy to choose. Especially in the past 100 years, the number of disciples that my Jianghu sect can recruit every year is less than 100. Furthermore, among the disciples that we recruit, those who have good aptitudes find it difficult to cultivate. Those who do not have good aptitudes find it easy to cultivate. Since that is the case, there is no harm in finding more." Xiao Hua replied in a bad mood. When he entered the Imperial Thunder Sect, he went through untold hardships. Of course, he knew the hardships of these disciples. Nua Yeqing smiled bitterly and said, "Hall Master thought so too back then. But our Jianghu sect is just a small sect. We can't afford to be tossed around. Because of this, we even offended." Speaking up to here, Nua Yeqing didn't dare to say anything more. She stole a glance at Xiao Hua's expression. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua was looking at a child sitting cross-legged not far away, ignoring Nua Yeqing. Thus, Nua Yeqing did not dare to overreach herself. Instead, she pointed at the child and said, "Senior, please take a look at this child. There are only 2 inches of blue light on the treasure ruler. If it was before, it would have indicated that he has a water attribute physique. However, his physique is heterogeneous and not suitable for cultivation. But now, that senior brother doesn't dare to confirm it, and has to let another senior uncle check again. Actually, after the check, the results are most likely similar." Indeed, it was as Nua Yeqing had said. The disciple did not dare to be too sure. After all, this child was a bit brighter than the other 2. The golden core cultivator in the distance brought the child to one side. After inspecting him, disappointment appeared on his face. He waved his hand and allowed the child to walk to the other side. On the other side, the children who had been eliminated were all dejected. Some of them were even sobbing softly. "Shut up." A foundation establishment disciple was obviously tired. Although he did not have the heart, there were too many crying children near him. He could not help but scold them. Several crying children hurriedly shut their mouths. However, large drops of tears fell unwillingly. The children tried their best to hold their breaths, not daring to make a sound. Their little faces were red from holding their breaths. Seeing this, Xiao Hua's heart softened all of a sudden. He naturally understood the hardships of cultivation, and even more so, he knew the expectations of entering a cultivation sect. Thus he opened his mouth and said, "You all are also ignorant. Since the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has changed, how can you still use the previous method to identify disciples? Moreover, the disciples you recruit are still using the previous method to cultivate. Aren't you courting death? The problem is, Nua Yeching answered casually, as if she had thought about this question many times. If we don't use this method, what kind of method can we use? If we don't use the original method, can we still find a suitable one? Change. Xiaohua said decisively. Change the method? Or change the method of recruiting disciples? Nua Yeching seemed to be angry. She asked, Senior, do you think it's so easy to change the method? If it was easy, the sect master would have changed it long ago. If we want to change the method, we also need to change the method of recruiting disciples. As Xiaohua spoke, he raised his hand and pointed at the disciple who had just been eliminated. He said, This child has a mutated ice spirit root. If he had an ice attribute method, he would be a foundation establishment disciple with a little bit of cultivation. Ah! Nua Yeching was shocked and blurted out, What's an ice spirit root? However, the moment he said that, Nua Yeching was overjoyed. She cried out in surprise, Senior, you can see with your naked eye. Nonsense! Xiaohua rolled his eyes at Nua Yeching. This guy really doesn't see the human race's great sage as a senior, right? Senior! Nua Yeching came to her senses. With a plop, she knelt on the ground and cried out, Senior, please extend your hand and help my Xianxia sect. That's not necessary. Xiaohua already somewhat understood that the matter of the Yulan Palace was not as simple as recruiting disciples. However, he still smiled and said, For the sake of recruiting disciples, you actually knelt? The Xianxia sect is this disciple's home. This disciple grew up here. This disciple is willing to do anything for the Xianxia sect. Nua Yeching replied without hesitation. Xiaohua liked disciples who were loyal to the sect the most. Since Nua Yeching was similar to Xianxia, how could he just stand by and watch? Thus he smiled and said, Deal. With just one word, Nua Yeching's heart was finally at ease. She couldn't help but smile. She flew up from the ground and somersaulted in the air. With a face full of joy she said, Thank you, Senior. This child. Xiaohua also smiled and asked, How do you want this old man to help your Xianxia sect? Please wait a moment. Nua Yeching hurriedly flew to Lu Qingyu's side. Lu Qingyu looked at Xiaohua in disbelief. Xiaohua nodded slightly. Thus, Lu Qingyu did not dare to delay and hurriedly flew up the stage with Nua Yeching. As expected by Xiaohua, Vice Palace Master Yun frowned and looked at Xiaohua. Then, he rushed to the child that Xiaohua pointed at and asked Lu Qingyu to send the child over. When the child came over, Vice Palace Master Yun asked the child to sit down cross-legged. However, Lu Qingyu raised his hand and touched the child's forehead. The child's face showed pain and his small body trembled slightly. After half a cup of tea's time, Vice Palace Master Yun's face showed disappointment. He waved his hand and asked Nua Yeching to send the child away. He looked impatiently at Lu Qingyu and even at Xiaohua in the distance and walked to the other side of the stage. Lu Qingyu, who was standing on the high platform, felt a little awkward. However, he hesitated for a moment before bowing and saying something to Vice Hall Master Yun. Vice Hall Master Yun still waved his hand impatiently. Lu Qingyu felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He hurriedly flew down the platform and sent the children who had just been tested into the inner hall. Haha, not bad. Seeing that Vice Palace Master Yun did not stop Lu Qingyu's actions, Xiaohua secretly smiled and said, Although Vice Palace Master Yun is a little arrogant, he does things impartially. He doesn't let personal matters affect his work. Unfortunately, Xiaohua still underestimated human nature. Although Vice Palace Master Yun did not act strangely, below the stage, the two golden core cultivators saw Lu Qingyu's actions. They looked at each other and hurriedly flew up the stage to ask about the situation. At this time, Nua Yeching had already turned around. She was about to explain something to Xiaohua with an apologetic expression when Xiaohua pointed at the two golden core cultivators and said with a smile, What do these two want? This. Nua Yeching did not want to say, but hearing Xiaohua's determined tone, she could only smile and say, These two martial uncles are called Xianxia and Wang Chu. Their cultivation is similar to my master's. Because there was a vacancy in Yulan Palace last year, the palace master wanted my master to take it. However, Vice Palace Master Yun was interested in them. Haha, where there are people, there will be Jianghu. It's true. Xiaohua smiled and looked at Nua Yeqing. What did your master say? This. Nua Yeqing scratched her head and said in a low voice, My master is a bit lazy. He said, whoever he wants. Haha. Xiaohua laughed and immediately thought of the situation when they broke the formation that day. At that time, there was a sound from time to time. It must be the result of Lu Qingyu being lazy. Xiaohua could not help but think, this guy actually dared to tease me like this. Today, I must teach him a lesson. So Xiaohua said in a low voice, Yeqing, do you want your master to be a vice palace master? Of course I do. Nua Yeqing's answer almost made Xiaohua fall. If master becomes a vice palace master, Junior will have more spiritual wine to drink. Deal. Xiaohua nodded. Take me to where the disciple selection is. Okay. Nua Yeqing immediately understood what Xiaohua wanted to do. She rolled her eyes and agreed without hesitation. Xiaohua did not fly up. Instead, he slowly walked over. Lu Qingyu saw Xiaohua coming over and hurriedly greeted him. When he saw that Vice Palace Master Yun did not pay attention to Xiaohua's suggestion, he wanted to avoid this matter and did not go back to explain to Xiaohua. Now that he saw Xiaohua coming over, he hurriedly smiled and said, Senior, Vice Palace Master Yun thinks that's senior. No need to say more. Xiaohua coldly waved his hand and said, He has eyes but can't see. That's his problem. I can't delay the important matters of your Chanha sect because of him. Xiaohua's words didn't have any intention of avoiding people. Blind as a bat, didn't speak loudly, but Xiaohua knew that Vice Hall Master Yun definitely heard him. This was because from the moment he started walking, Vice Hall Master Yun's divine sense had been circling around him. Yes, yes. Lu Qingyu's forehead was covered in sweat. Thinking that Xiaohua was angry, he fiercely glared at Nua Yeqing, who was taking pleasure in his misfortune. He still stammered, Senior is right, but. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, reward it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4854. But what about? Xiaohua's tone was cold as he said, It's not easy for me to be in the mood to help you. Tell me, is the future of your Chanhe sect more important or Deputy Palace Master Yun's face more important? This. Of course the future of my Chanhe sect is more important. Lu Qingyu stammered. But can't Senior wait for a moment? I'll talk to Deputy Palace Master Yun again. I'll leave if you tell me. Xiaohua said firmly. Master. Nua Yeqing added fuel to the fire. Senior Zhang said that not only can he help us choose disciples, but he can also teach us the secret method of choosing disciples. He can even modify our cultivation method to adapt to the current spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Ah, really? Lu Qingyu was so excited that his face turned red. He couldn't believe his ears. When did I say that I'll modify your cultivation method? Xiaohua glared at Nua Yeqing and scolded, I only said that I can modify. Please. Lu Qingyu heard the leeway in Xiaohua's tone. He didn't think at all and hurriedly stretched out his hand, almost pulling Xiaohua's sleeve. Stop pulling. If you continue, your clothes will be torn. Xiaohua said angrily. Yes, I understand. Lu Qingyu was embarrassed and let go. He seemed to understand that if it weren't for his clothes, this mysterious senior might not care about the affairs of Chanhe sect. What do you want to do? Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could walk to the group of children, the two gold core cultivators named Xianxia and Wang Chu flew over and blocked Xiaohua. Xianxia, Wang Chu, what do you mean by this? Lu Qingyu was unhappy. This is the area that I'm responsible for. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with you two, right? Deputy Palace Master Yun thinks that junior brother Lu is not suitable to be responsible here, so he asked us to take over. Xianxia smiled brightly, but he looked like a smiling tiger. Lu Qingyu didn't shrink back and said lightly, If it's Deputy Palace Master Yun's intention, please come and tell me that you don't seem to be qualified. Tieskese. Another Wang Chu smacked his lips and said sarcastically, Lu Qingyu, who do you think you are? How dare you make Vice Palace Master Yun come here personally? It is already a great crime for you to lead outsiders into my Yulan Hall to investigate the recruitment of disciples of my Chanhe sect. Now, You are even using an outsider to disrupt the recruitment of disciples in my Yulan Hall. It seems that my Xianxia sect will not be able to recruit suitable disciples this year. You are part of this. Perhaps you are colluding with the Flying Shadow sect to kill my Xianxia sect. Damn it! Lu Qingyu was furious. He was about to open his mouth to speak. Swoosh! The sound of wind suddenly appeared. He saw a wicker-sized fireball flying through the air. It flew straight at Wang Chu's face. Wang Chu didn't expect that someone would suddenly attack him in the Yulan Hall. He was shocked and hurriedly raised his hand. Swoosh! A smear of green water appeared and blocked the fireball. Boom! With a loud explosion, both the fireball and the water were annihilated. However, the moment the fireball disappeared, another thumb-sized flame flew out with a swish and rushed to the top of Wang Chu's head with lightning speed. Pa! A crisp sound was heard, and the flame fell on Wang Chu's head. Of course, this flame couldn't cause any harm to a golden core cultivator. However, when the flame fell on Wang Chu's head, it made him extremely embarrassed. Scram! At this time, Hong Feng's voice sounded behind Lu Qingyu. When I am testing, I hate it when people are noisy. Scram! Lu Qingyu also said angrily, this is where I select my disciples. It was personally appointed by Palace Master Xia. Even Vice Palace Master Yun doesn't have the right to take it back. If you want to take it back, go to Mingxin Hall and report to Palace Master Xia first. Damn it! Wang Chu was humiliated and angry. He looked at Hong Feng and said, you dare to use magic in the Yulan Hall? Bah! If I don't use magic in the Yulan Hall, how can I select my disciples? If I don't drive away the noisy people, how can I select my disciples calmly? Hong Feng had a bad temper and was already scolding. If you continue to disturb me here, it will be your responsibility if I can't find the 20 disciples today. Yu Chengxiu looked at Lu Qingyu with a smile and said, it seems that senior brother Lu doesn't have Vice Palace Master Yun in his eyes. Since that's the case, I can only report to Vice Palace Master Yun that you treat Vice Palace Master Yun's words as farts? Scram, scram, scram. Who cares who? Lu Qingyu was really angry and said, scram, 3 times in a row. He understood that he and the others had already done a great service by getting the array flag of the Heavenly Cycle Demon subduing star array. Whether it was Palace Master Xia or the sect leader, they would definitely not blame him for today's mistake. What's more, Lu Qingyu didn't feel that he had done anything wrong today. Wang Chu wanted to flare up, but Hong Feng kept talking about selection. It was not something that a reckless man like him could think of. He unconsciously glared fiercely at Yuehua, who was not far away, and helplessly wanted to go back with Yu Chengxiu. As if the owner of a dog would definitely come out after hitting it, Vice Palace Master Yun's voice sounded at this time. Cough, cough, what's going on? Hong Feng. How can you use an offensive talisman in the Yulan Hall? Although Vice Palace Master Yun's words were directed at Hong Feng, his eyes fell on Xiao Hua. Vice Palace Master Yun was not a fool. He had already noticed that Xiao Hua was different. Not only because he couldn't see through Xiao Hua's strength, but also because of Xia Feng's sudden departure earlier. However, Vice Palace Master Yun didn't think that Xiao Hua could be that powerful. Moreover, he didn't believe that Lu Qingyu and the other Golden Core cultivators could be acquainted with any high-level cultivators. Especially, how could a high-level cultivator be able to stand in front of him so quietly? Vice Palace Master Yun. Hong Feng hesitated for a moment before replying, don't you know? Sect Master has already given a death order. Tonight, we must find 20 disciples who can inherit our Xianxia sect's Dao techniques. Disciple has been racking his brains for the selection, but Wang Chu actually caused trouble for Disciple. Disciple suspects that he is a spy from the Flying Shadow sect. Damn it, you're the spy from the Flying Shadow sect. Wang Chu didn't dare to let Hong Feng speak anymore. He hurriedly said, I'm only here on Vice Palace Master's orders, to chase away the people who are disturbing the sect's selection, right? That's right. Vice Palace Master Yun nodded and said, today, the Yulan Hall is already chaotic. If we don't restrain ourselves, how can we complete Sect Master's death order? Therefore, I ask those who have nothing to do to leave the Yulan Hall first. After saying this, Vice Palace Master Yun looked at Xiao Hua, but Xiao Hua didn't even bother to look at him. Vice Palace Master Yun had no choice but to glare sternly at Lu Qingyu. If it was before, Lu Qingyu wouldn't even think about it. He would just say, "Who cares?" and turn around to leave. He couldn't be bothered to talk to these people. However, today was different. He had already keenly felt the meaning of Xiao Hua's words from Nua Yeqing's words. A cultivator who could change the cultivation method at will. This was a powerful person that even the sect master of the Xianxia sect had to look up to. If the Xianxia sect wanted to get out of this predicament, this was definitely one of the opportunities. Lu Qingyu didn't want to give up this opportunity. Therefore, Lu Qingyu had no way out. He immediately said, "Don't even think about it. This is the position that Palace Master assigned to disciple. Disciple still wants to choose a suitable disciple for the sect and complete the sect master's orders." You. Vice Palace Master Yun was furious at this time. He said coldly, "We've been busy for a few days and haven't chosen many. You think you can choose by staying here?" "What? I can really choose?" Lu Qingyu retorted. "If I choose, what should I do?" "Hee, Lu Qingyu, I know what you're thinking." Vice Palace Master Yun looked at Lu Qingyu, then looked at Xianxia and Wang Chu. He said with a smile, "If you can choose 20 suitable disciples, I'll recommend you to be the deacon of Yulan Palace. However, I'll say this first. If you can't find 20 disciples, you'll have to ask Palace Master Xia." Vice Palace Master Yun didn't finish his words, but Lu Qingyu didn't care at all. He replied without hesitation, "No problem." After saying that, Lu Qingyu respectfully bowed to Xiao Hua and said, "Senior, please be wise and help my Xianxia sect to choose a suitable disciple. Help my Xianxia sect to get out of this predicament." Vice Palace Master Yun looked at Xiao Hua with a somewhat uncertain expression. He had also carefully looked at the previous child. Whether it was the physical attribute or the bone condition, it was not good. It could barely meet the requirements of the Xianxia sect to choose a disciple. It was impossible for him to be the genius that Lu Qingyu mentioned. Could it be? This cultivator really has some secret technique that can find the so-called spiritual root? Vice Palace Master Yun thought to himself. And this child with the spiritual root can use the mutated spiritual chi of heaven and earth to cultivate? But, this spiritual root, what is it? Thinking of this, Vice Palace Master Yun couldn't help but look at Yue Hua and the others. He wanted to ask about Xiao Hua's origin, but unfortunately, Yue Hua, who was outside the palace gate, was stopped by him impatiently when she wanted to report to him. Just when Vice Palace Master Yun was in a dilemma, suddenly, a voice was transmitted in a low voice. Vice Palace Master Yun slightly raised the corner of his mouth, and his eyes faintly glanced at Zhang Ji in the distance. Since Xiao Hua had the intention to help Lu Qingyu, he didn't hold back and walked towards those children whose faces were filled with confusion and longing. He didn't use any magic power, nor did he use any divine ability. He didn't even look at them. His feet almost didn't touch the ground as he walked through these children. He raised his hand and randomly pointed. In a short while, he found 13 children. This many? Lu Qingyu was a little dumbfounded. Yes. Xiao Hua looked at these children who stood up, and his face was filled with ecstasy. He used his hand to point at them one by one and said with a smile, "He has the wood spiritual root, he has the fire spiritual root. Oh, this one is not simple. It's a mutated wind spiritual root. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, reward it, and thank you for all kinds of support." Chapter 4855. Yes. Nua Yeqing was overjoyed. She listened carefully and took note of everything. Vice Palace Master Yun. Wang Chu said in a strange tone, "If the selection of disciples was so simple, why would my Xianxia sect set up my Yulan Hall?" "Shut up." Vice Palace Master Yun scolded before Wang Chu could finish. How could a cultivator who could break the heavenly cycle demon-subduing star formation be easy to deal with? Wang Chu shrunk back in fear and didn't dare to say anything. Vice Palace Master Yun bowed respectfully and said, "Junior Yun Songyu, please forgive me for my rudeness." How could Xiao Hua lower himself to the level of a nascent soul cultivator? Moreover, Vice Palace Master Yun didn't do anything wrong, so Xiao Hua waved his hand and turned to look at the hundreds of children in the flood peak and walked over. "Huh? What are you waiting for?" Why don't you hurry up and choose? Xiaofeng's angry voice came from the door before Xiao Hua could get close. If you delay the sect master's matter, I'll take your heads. At this moment, the other disciples in the entire Magnolia Palace had already noticed Lu Qingyu's abnormality. They all stopped their selection and watched as Xiao Hua casually selected a dozen or so children. Everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. Yu Qingxiu's face lit up when he heard Xiaofeng's voice. Just as he was about to open his mouth to speak, he grabbed Wang Chu and said, "Quick now! Otherwise, you'll lose your deacon position." "Lord Temple Master." Wang Chu immediately called out. Xiaofeng came over and asked, "What's the matter?" "Good, Palace Master. You should know that this is an expert that senior apprentice Brother Lu has invited from the outside. This, in just the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, he has already picked out 14 disciples. If nothing unexpected happens, tonight, our Yulan Palace will definitely be able to complete the sect master's important task." Wang Chu said seriously, "Senior Brother Lu has made a great contribution to our Yulan Hall. I admire him very much. The sect master must reward him greatly." "There's such a thing?" Xiaofeng looked at Xiao Hua with some confusion and asked, "Fellow Taoist Zhang has such a secret technique?" "You!" Beside Wang Chu, Yu Chengxiu was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. He grumbled in a low voice, "Aren't you letting Lu Qingyu off by doing this? He, my deacon, is also your deacon." Wang Chu smiled faintly. His body unconsciously moved a few feet away from Yu Chengxiu and approached Lu Qingyu, whether intentionally or not. Since Xiaofeng had returned, Xiao Hua simply stopped and looked at him. After Xiaofeng finished speaking, he smiled apologetically and said, "I'm sorry, fellow Taoist Zhang. The sect master is in a meeting with the elders. I couldn't enter the Clear Heart Palace, so I handed the banner to the disciple guarding the palace. I was worried about the selection of the Yulan Palace, so I hurried back." "Oh, I see." Xiao Hua nodded and casually responded. Then, he walked in front of the children, raised his hand and pointed at 5 of them. He smiled and said, "These 5 are all commonly seen earth spirit veins. They can't be considered particularly outstanding, but they can still cultivate." "Fellow Taoist." Xiaofeng was dumbfounded, and he almost blurted out, "Are you kidding me? Who would treat the selection of disciples as child's play?" "My family," Xiao Hua answered with a smile. Then he turned to Lu Qingyu and said, "Lu Qingyu, I've already done what I promised you." Senior. Before Lu Qingyu could speak, Nua Yeching hurriedly called out, "Look, there are so many children in the hall. They all want to cultivate in our Jianghu school. It's fine if their aptitudes are ordinary, but do you want those with excellent aptitudes to be buried in the mortal world?" Xiao Hua angrily glared at Nua Yeching. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, "What does this have to do with me?" Senior. Deputy Sect Master Yun also came to his senses and hurriedly said respectfully, "I'm really blind. Since you can help our Jianghu school so easily, can you help us to the end?" Seeing that Deputy Sect Master Yun also became serious, Xiaofeng hurriedly flew in front of a child and raised his hand to point at the child's forehead. The child's body trembled slightly. After a moment, Xiaofeng withdrew his hand and looked at Xiao Hua in confusion. He said, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, why do you think this child is a promising talent? In my opinion he has inferior aptitudes." "Because you don't know how to identify the spiritual root," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "What is the spiritual root?" Xiaofeng asked. Xiao Hua shook his head. "With your cultivation, it's impossible for you to understand the meaning of the spiritual root." Hiss. Xiaofeng sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly said respectfully, "Senior, please teach me." "You don't need to listen," Xiao Hua said indifferently. "You can't live for more than 10 years, and you can't cultivate to the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. How can you understand the spiritual root?" Xiao Hua's words were like a thunderbolt that stunned Xiaofeng all of a sudden. In addition to being surprised, his eyes were full of sadness and desolation. He clearly knew that his cultivation had not improved since 10 years ago, and he could clearly feel that the end of his life was approaching. He had never told anyone about this situation, not even the head of the Jianghu school. Of course, he felt that Xiao Hua's words were a bit alarmist, because he estimated that his life was only 50 years. Plop! Hong Feng knelt on the ground and said, "Senior, please save my sect master. This junior deserves to die." Vice Sect Master Yun also knelt down. He did not care about his dignity as a nascent soul realm cultivator and said, "This junior was blind and offended senior. This junior begs senior for forgiveness and help my sect master." When Vice Sect Master Yun knelt down, the other disciples could not help but kneel down as well. Xiaohua sighed as he looked at Xiafeng. He did not expect that this boorish man would be so loved by the disciples of the Yulan Palace. However, at the same time, he was also helpless. Because although he could help Xiafeng at this time, he had no way to help Xiafeng. Because his rejuvenation pill was in the space, and at this time, he could not enter the space at all. Everyone get up. Seeing Xiaohua in a difficult position, how could Xiafeng not know the reason? He raised his hand and helped the disciples to their feet, including Vice Sect Master Yun, and scolded, "A person's life and death is in the hands of the heavens. Although Senior Zhang's cultivation is profound, he does not have the ability to reverse the situation. Do not make things difficult for him." AI. Vice Sect Master Yun got up. How could he not have such thoughts? Although the Yilan continent's Taoist sects were powerful and had thousands of powerful cultivators, he had never heard of a cultivator who could defy the heavens and change his fate. He was just hoping for a fluke and wanted to ask Xiaohua for help. "It's fate." Xiaohua looked at Xiafeng's calm and said, "Xiafeng, your fate is not good." Hearing this, Xiafeng was even more shocked. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Yes, this junior understands. Death is not the end, but a new beginning." Xiaohua said again, "Your cultivation method is wrong. When you condensed your yuanying, it was already flawed. Even if you can prolong your life, it is still very unlikely that you can cultivate to the late yuanying stage. Senior can actually." At this time, Vice Sect Master Yun did not dare to have the slightest doubt. He knew that everything that Lu Qingyu and Nua Yeqing had said was true. "Yes, I'm the one who is most aware of my situation," Xiafeng said respectfully. Because this disciple does not have much time left, this disciple is worried about the Chanhe sect. Therefore this disciple is much more harsh than before. Xiaohua looked at this yuanying cultivator who was exhausting himself for the sect and could not help but think of Wuxia. There were thousands of evil people in this world, but the loyal ones were also similar. Xiafeng did not care about Xiaohua's expression and continued to say, "If possible, I would like to ask Senior to help my Chanhe sect. This selection of disciples is too important for my Chanhe sect." "Of course," Xiaohua said with a smile. "This is just a small matter." Saying this, Xiaohua walked towards the children not far away. Xiafeng hurriedly smiled and said, "There is no need to trouble Senior to use his magic power. Senior, please sit high and let these children line up." "Haha, there is no need." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "These children are only 4 or 5 years old. They are already tired. Although this old man is old, my energy is much stronger than theirs. Let me go." Xiafeng said shamefully, "This junior understands." Then he said to Lu Qingyu and Nua Yeqing, "You two quickly record." "Yes, Sect Master." Lu Qingyu and Nua Yeqing took out their jade slips and accompanied Xiaohua. Xiaohua pointed out one child and they each recorded one in their jade slips. There were nearly 2,000 children in the Yulan Palace. It seemed that they had all been selected in advance. Therefore, Xiaohua found a lot of children with spiritual roots. There were more than 200 children, which made Xiafeng very happy. After all the children were selected, Xiaohua did not wait for Xiafeng to speak and said, "Let the thousands of children outside the door in." "Yes, this junior will do it right away." Deputy Sect Master Yun did not dare to delay and hurriedly wanted to go out. At this time, Xiafeng thought of something and hurriedly shouted, "By the way, Songyu, where are the children who were eliminated before? I remember that most of them were not sent back. Quickly, send them over." This. Deputy Sect Master Yun was a little embarrassed and said in a low voice, "The disciples who were sent back by my Yulan Palace have been handed over to the outer sect disciples. I am afraid it will not be easy to find them back." "Why are there so many buts?" Xiafeng raised his eyebrows and shouted, "This is a rare opportunity. Senior Zhang is in my Yulan Palace. If he leaves, I'm afraid we won't even have time to cry. After that, Xiaofeng tried to smile and said to Xiaohua, "Am I right, senior?" Of course, Xiaofeng was playing a little trick. He did not ask for Xiaohua's opinion in advance, and ordered Yun Songyu to find the children who were eliminated before. At this time, he asked Xiaohua in return, which obviously meant that what was done could not be undone. However, Xiaohua did not care too much and said with a smile, "Yes, what Sect Master Xiaofeng said is reasonable." P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a reward, and... Chapter 48-56. Xiaofeng heaved a sigh of relief. He hurriedly nodded at Yun Songyu, who flew out of the hall with a look of ecstasy on his face. Not long after, the children outside the hall began to gradually enter, however. Before Xiaohua could begin to select disciples for the Yulan Hall, he saw Yun Songyu return with a gloomy face and whispered to Xiaofeng. When Xiaofeng heard it, he was like a firecracker being carried by a candle. Ting! He flew out of the high platform with a "damn it." He muttered to himself. Who's the one that deserves to die? Who dares to make Palace Master Xia angry? Xiaofeng had just flown to the front of the hall when several figures flew in from outside. The first to speak was a loud and clear voice with a kind of joy. "Oh, Sect Master?" Xiaofeng's figure suddenly stopped. He looked at the middle-aged man who came in first and asked curiously, "Aren't you in the Clear Heart Hall discussing matters with the elders? Why are you suddenly here?" Xiaohua heard the voice and looked over. Standing in front of Xiaofeng was a late Yuaning stage cultivator in his 40s. This cultivator was tall and his face was as white as jade. A pair of sword-like eyebrows slanted into his temples. His thin lips were slightly upturned, carrying a kind of thick smile. Xiaohua looked at this Yuaning stage cultivator, and the latter naturally looked back at Xiaohua, who was like the moon surrounded by stars. "Sect Master Lu saw the banner you sent over. How can he still discuss matters calmly?" Behind the Yuaning stage cultivator stood two men and a woman. The woman was also a charming woman in her 40s. Seeing that Xiaofeng's words were a bit abrupt, she couldn't help but smile and say, "So, I hurried over with the elders." Yes. Xiaofeng slapped his forehead and said, "This disciple was carried away by the good news of the Yulan Hall and forgot about the great heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation." What good news is there in the Yulan Hall? The Yuaning stage cultivator was stunned and asked curiously. At the same time, his gaze moved away from Xiaohua and looked at other places in the Yulan Hall. The joy on Xiaofeng's face did not fade. Just as he was about to explain, the woman smiled and said, "Sect Master did not greet the guests first and instead asked about other things. Isn't that too rude?" Indeed. The nascent soul cultivator retracted his gaze and looked at Xiaohua. He cupped his hands and said, "I'm Lu Hanhuan, the sect master of Chanhe sect. Greetings, fellow Taoist." Xiaohua smiled and returned the greeting, "I am Zhang Xiaohua. These are the three elders of the Chanhe sect." Lu Hanhuan raised his hand and introduced the three elders behind him. The woman cupped her hands and bowed. "I am Yu Zhuahong. Greetings, fellow Taoist Zhang." Another short old man smiled and said, "I'm Gao Cheng. Greetings, fellow Taoist Zhang." The tall yellow-skinned elder looked at Xiaohua suspiciously, but he didn't bow. Instead he said, "Pang Luxing greets fellow Taoist." From the looks of it, if not for sect head Lu's introduction, he probably wouldn't have even told Xiaohua his name. He. Greetings to Elder Yu, Elder Gao, and Elder Pang. Xiaohua didn't put on any airs, nor did he salute. He raised his hand to return the salute and replied with a smile. Xiaofeng patiently waited for sect head Lu to finish greeting Xiaohua. Before Xiaohua finished speaking, he immediately shouted, "Sect head Lu, you are late. You didn't see the scene that shocked all the disciples of the Yulan Palace." Then, Xiaofeng explained the situation of Xiaohua's disciple selection. Although Xiaofeng said it simply, Lu Hanhuan and the others were shocked after hearing it. Xiaofeng said, "I ordered Yun Songyu to bring back the returned children from the outer sect, but that damn Fan Lu actually said he had ordered the outer sect disciples to send those returned children back tomorrow morning, and they can't." Lu Hanhuan hurriedly waved his hand to stop Xiaofeng from continuing to expose the truth. He turned to Gao Cheng and said, Elder Gao, please go. Yes, I understand. Gao Qing nodded and turned around to leave the Yulan Palace. Only now did Lu Hanhuan fly in front of Xiao Hua and say with a smile, I'm very honored to actually be able to see a new method of selecting disciples on this day when the world's spiritual energy is annihilated. I wonder if fellow Taoist Zhang can make a move now and broaden my horizons? Of course. Xiao Hua replied with a smile. He looked at the children who had entered the Yulan Palace and lined up neatly. He pointed at them and said, This is a variant of the wind spiritual root. As long as he is cultivated well, he can cultivate to the nascent soul stage. This is a water spiritual root, so he can cultivate to the late gold core stage. This is a 5-element spiritual root, so he can cultivate to the early gold core stage. Seeing that Xiao Hua had only glanced over and casually commented like a budding calf in the marketplace, Pang Luxing couldn't help but snort disdainfully. He said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, this old man sees that you haven't formed any hand seals, and you haven't even activated your Dharma eye, spirit gaze, and other divine abilities. On what basis do you say that these children with ordinary aptitudes have extraordinary aptitudes? Xiao Hua didn't even raise his eyes. He still pointed with his hand and said. After half a cup of tea, he raised his eyes again and glanced at Pang Luxing. He said indifferently, It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. I just told the truth. It doesn't matter if your Xianxia sect believes it or not. Haha. Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, please don't blame me. Although Elder Pang's words are not pleasant to hear, there is some truth in them. This one knows that you are an expert. However, this one also has a question. For example, this child. As he spoke, Lu Hanhuan pulled over the little girl that Xiao Hua had pointed out as having a variant wind spiritual root. He raised his hand and tapped the space between her eyebrows. A moment later he said, Although I can feel that her bones are somewhat light, the bones of an ordinary little girl should be like this. And in other aspects, she is not particularly different from ordinary girls. How can fellow Taoists say that she will definitely be able to cultivate to the nascent soul stage? This so-called variant wind spiritual root. What is it? Where can this one see it? I already told Xiaofeng just now. What is a spiritual root? It is really hard to explain. The cultivation method that you all cultivate doesn't involve these aspects. Even if I explained it, you all wouldn't understand. Xiao Hua replied with a smile. You all only know that this girl has a variant spiritual root that ordinary people don't have. In the future, as long as it is a wind-type cultivation method, she will be able to grasp it very well. She will be able to cultivate 70% faster than ordinary disciples. Xiao Hua's words were like a fraud. Pang Luxing had already seen Xiao Hua as a liar. He couldn't help but sneer. How is that possible? Pang Liuxing's words were very rude, but Xiao Hua only smiled and didn't care. Pang Liuxing's words and attitude, compared to the people of Xiao Empire who had abandoned Xiao Hua, were like a cool breeze. It didn't cause any ripples in Xiao Hua's heart. He only smiled and said to Lu Hanhuan, You only need to follow I's words. After 10 years, you will naturally know whether it is true or not. What's the use of 10 years? Lu Hanhuan waved his hand and said mournfully, The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Yilin continent has changed greatly. Most of the cultivation methods of my Xianxia sect are no longer suitable. This so-called variant spiritual root, even if it is a genius, will not be able to cultivate to a shocking level in 10 years. Forget it. Rather than letting him be buried in my Xianxia sect, why not let him enter the fallen celestial sect? Sect Master. Without waiting for Lu Hanhuan to finish, Xiaofeng immediately shouted with a hoarse voice. How can you say this? Although my Xianxia sect is a small sect, but we have been standing in Xingyun Ridge for so many years. My Xianxia sect has also experienced many ordinary storms. The current predicament is really nothing. As long as my Xianxia sect is united, we will definitely be able to get through it. Lu Hanhuan shook his head slightly and looked at Xiaofeng. He smiled bitterly. Xiaofeng, you don't understand what I am saying. Xianxia sect's current predicament. I actually don't care about it at all. If I can't even solve such a small problem, how can I be worthy of being the sect master? Not to mention, you have also found the array flag of the heavenly demon subduing star array for my Xianxia sect. With this array flag, the fallen celestial sect will definitely send disciples over. My Jianghu sex crisis has actually been resolved. What I am talking about is the life and death of thousands of small sects in the Yilin continent. As he spoke, Lu Hanhuan looked at Xiao Hua and smiled apologetically. I am not afraid of being laughed at by fellow Taoist Zhang. In the Fengyan country, almost 20 small sects like my Jianghu sect have been annihilated in the past 100 years. And my Jianghu sect has actually been struggling at death's door. Not only because we can't recruit suitable disciples, but also because we don't have suitable cultivation methods. What's more, our small sects don't occupy the spiritual veins, and our disciples don't have enough crystals to cultivate. Especially in the past 200 years, the quality of the elixirs refined by my Jianghu sect has been deteriorating. Not only do they not have the original effect, sometimes they even backfire on the meridians. Under such circumstances, even if there is a disciple with peerless talent, how can my Jianghu sect nurture him? Sigh. Hearing Lu Hanhuan speak of his difficulties, Pang Luxing also sighed. He looked at Xiao Hua and said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, don't blame me for being picky. As a small sect, my Jianghu sect has some foundation in the mountain gate. It is precisely because it has been maintained for so many years that it has long attracted some itinerant cultivators' covetous eyes. Previously, there were also many so-called experts who used the name of guiding the way to deceive my Jianghu sect's crystals. When the world is changing, which senior doesn't hide in the blessed land and think hard about how to deal with it? Which expert doesn't hide their cultivation? It's better to avoid trouble. Who would care about the life and death of my Jianghu sect? Hearing this, Yu Zhuahong also echoed, Elder Pang is right. My sect master is kind-hearted. Although he has seen through those clumsy scams sometimes, he still thinks about the difficulties of others and will always take out some crystals to send them off. Although it's not much each time, it can't be helped. The elders have already said it many times. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, reward it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4857. Hee hee. Xiao Hua smiled and raised his hand. Elders, there's no need to say anything more. This poor Taoist already understands what you mean. This poor Taoist was just passing by and happened to have some fate with Nua Yeqing. Therefore, I casually extended my hand to help Nua Yeqing. If you don't believe me, then forget it. Unexpectedly, Nua Yeqing suddenly stepped out from the crowd and knelt in front of Xiao Hua. She kowtowed and said, Senior, this junior knows that you are an expert. Sect leader and others may have too many misgivings and dare not say it out loud. This junior has heard from senior that senior can modify a cultivation method to adapt to the changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Therefore, this junior earnestly asks senior to help my Jianghu school. No, even if it's to help that poor little girl, don't let her talent be drowned in the mortal world. Can you help her modify a cultivation method? Master. The little girl was really smart. Although she was only about 5 years old, she already understood. She hurriedly knelt down and crawled over on her knees. She cried, Master, please take pity on Xi'er. Xi'er. Xiao Hua was stunned and said in surprise, You're called Xi'er? What's your surname? The little girl was also stunned. She immediately kowtowed respectfully and said, Master, my surname is Zhu, and my name is Xi'er. See. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. He couldn't help but think of the Zhu family's descendant in Jianghu city of the Xiaoyu continent. That poor Xi'er. However, Xiao Hua carefully looked at the little girl and then shook his head slightly. Although this little girl had the same surname as Zhu Xi'er of Jingfan Qi, her foundation was completely different. There were no traces of reincarnation. It could only be a coincidence. Xi'er. Xiao Hua smiled and asked, Your parents, are they all well? Master. Zhu Xi'er replied obediently. Xi'er's parents are all well. They all hope that Xi'er can enter the Jianghu school so that they can hold their heads high. Haha, this child. You really know how to climb up a pole. Xiao Hua laughed and raised his hand to pat Zhu Xi'er's head. He said, Quickly get up. Yes. Zhu Xi'er didn't dare to disobey. She hurriedly got up, but when she got up, she saw that Nua Yeqing was still kneeling there. She thought for a moment, then walked to Nua Yeqing's side and continued to kneel. Her small figure looked quite interesting next to Nua Yeqing's figure. Xiao Hua was surprised and asked casually, Why are you kneeling again? Master, my mother always said that a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. This brother spoke up for and Xier has nothing to repay. I can only kneel here with him. Xier blinked her big bright eyes and answered carefully. Ai, this obedient child, if I didn't personally jump you out, I would have thought that you were colluding with Nua Yeching to act out a double act in front of this old man. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He waved his hand and said, All of you get up. Yes, thank you, senior. Nua Yeching was overjoyed. She hurriedly pulled Xier up from the ground. Seeing Nua Yeching stand up, Xiaohua stretched out his hand and said, Nua Yeching, give me your cultivation technique. Nua Yeching was stunned. She looked at Xiaohua at a loss and whispered, Senior, can't you give me the cultivation technique? This old man's cultivation technique is this old man's. It is naturally different from the cultivation technique that your Xianxia sect cultivates. If this Zhu Shi cultivates this old man's cultivation technique, whose disciple would she be? Xiaohua smiled and asked. Lu Hanhuan, the head of Xianxia sect, looked at Elder Yu Zhuahong. Surprise appeared in their eyes, while Elder Pang Luxing sneered. Nua Yeching naturally didn't dare to agree to Xiaohua's request. She looked at Lu Qingyu for help. Lu Qingyu also couldn't agree, so he could only look at Lu Hanhuan. Hee. Pang Luxing opened his mouth and looked at Xiaohua with understanding. Fellow Taoist Zhang, others come to my Xianxia sect for crystal stones. There are also some bold ones who come to seek some magic tools. However, this is the first time I have seen someone so bold. He actually dares to covet my Xianxia sect's cultivation technique. Could it be that fellow Taoist treated this Pang's previous warning as a passing wind? Ha! Xiaohua yawned and stretched. He said somewhat impatiently, The night is long, the autumn wind is waning, the sky is like a curtain, the stars and the moon are like a painting. If this old man has free time, why don't I go look at the stars and the night sky? Who has no reason to be long-winded with an ordinary person like you? Forget it. Since we are not fated, there is no need to force it. Xiaohua didn't say anything else. He raised his hand and pointed at the last few children without hesitation as if he was playing with them. Lu Qingyu didn't dare to be negligent. He gave Nua Yeching a meaningful glance. The two of them followed Xiaohua like flowing water and carefully recorded on the jade slip. Elder Yu. Lu Hanhuan hesitated and asked in a low voice, What do you think of fellow Taoist Zhang? Yu Zhuahong looked at Xiaohua's back and didn't speak for a long time. After half a cup of tea, he replied with worry in his eyes. Sect head, this old man has a complicated feeling. I don't know how to answer sect head. Complicated feeling, this. What does this mean? Lu Hanhuan felt strange and asked in puzzlement. It's very simple. Yu Zhuahong smiled bitterly and said, When this old man saw fellow Taoist Zhang for the first time, I felt that he was trustworthy. This trust is definitely not ordinary trust. It's the kind of trust that I can give him from the bottom of my heart. How is this possible? Lu Hanhuan was surprised and then asked curiously, So Elder also agrees to give the cultivation method to him? Of course not. Yu Zhuahong replied resolutely and decisively. It's because of this unfounded trust that this old man suspects that he has used some kind of secret technique that we don't know. He has bewitched this old man. Sweat. Lu Hanhuan's face was full of black lines and he whispered, Why would he bewitch you? Even if he wanted to bewitch, he should have bewitched me, right? Oh, I understand. This is your complicated feeling. Your intuition tells you that he can be trusted, but you also feel that you can't trust him so easily, right? Yes, Sect Master. This feeling is too unimaginable, so I feel that we can't simply give the cultivation method to him. Although Yu Zhuahong was a little hesitant, he still answered from his heart. Lu Hanhuan thought for a moment and asked Pang Luxing via voice transmission, Elder Pang, what do you think of this fellow Taoist Zhang? If he's not a liar, then he's a senior. Pang Luxing answered without hesitation. Then, can we give the cultivation method to him? Lu Hanhuan seemed to be unable to decide and asked again. Pang Luxing smiled and sent a voice transmission to Lu Hanhuan. Yes, why not? Why? Lu Hanhuan was shocked. He thought that Pang Luxing would definitely object, but he didn't expect Pang Luxing to agree without hesitation. Pang Luxing explained, "Sect master, my Xianxia sect is a small sect. Even if the cultivation method that the sect master cultivates, it doesn't seem to be a particularly good cultivation method in Fengyan country, right? If this fellow Taoist Zhang is a liar, why doesn't he go to other sects? Aren't other sects more profitable than my Xianxia sect? But if this fellow Taoist Zhang isn't a liar, wouldn't my Xianxia sect have picked up a great bargain? A modified cultivation method that can adapt to the current changes in the spirit qi of heaven and earth. This is a sky-high item in the auction. I'm afraid that even if my Xianxia sect uses all its wealth, we won't be able to buy one." "So, you've been testing fellow Taoist Zhang?" Lu Hanhuan came to a realization and smiled. "There's no other way." Pang Luxing shrugged and said helplessly, "Now, all the seniors of the Tao sect are in seclusion to avoid the effects of the changes in the spirit qi of heaven and earth. I'm sure the sect master has already sensed it, right? Now that we're using our dermic powers, our lifespan is also decreasing. Although the loss is very small, it's still a lifespan. Who would dare to casually take action when it's a matter of life and death? We nascent soul cultivators are already like this. Wouldn't it be even more obvious for the seniors?" Now, which senior would stroll around the Yilin continent for no reason? So, it's not that I don't believe this fellow Taoist Zhang, but I don't dare to believe it. See? Lu Hanhuan was shocked and said in a low voice, "Elder Pang, could it be that you've also sensed the changes in lifespan?" Pang Luxing did not answer Lu Hanhuan's question. Instead, he looked at Xiaohua's back and said in a low voice, "If the sect master has a wind attribute cultivation technique, there's no harm in giving it to fellow Taoist Zhang. Consider it as a test." Hearing this, Lu Hanhuan suddenly came to a realization. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xianxia sect was a small sect. If it was the 5 elements cultivation technique, they didn't lack it. However, a wind attribute cultivation technique was a rare cultivation technique. Xianxia sect really didn't have it. What could he use to make them change it? However, Lu Hanhuan couldn't say this out loud and embarrass himself. He only nodded slightly. Seeing that Xiaohua had already picked out the children with spirit roots, he secretly calculated in his heart, reporting to the sect master. At this moment, Gao Cheng, who had gone out to pass the order, entered the Yulan hall. He bowed and said, "This subordinate has already passed the order. Those children have already fallen asleep. This subordinate has thought about it again and again. There's nothing to think about." Lu Hanhuan waved his hand and said, "You must let the children rest well. Everything can wait until tomorrow." "Oh yes, this subordinate also thinks so." Gao Cheng was a little surprised. These words didn't sound like the words of the sect master he was familiar with. He was prepared to be scolded by the sect master. Who knew that Lu Hanhuan's thoughts were actually so similar to his fellow Taoist Zhang? Seeing that Xiaohua had picked out the last qualified disciple, Lu Hanhuan hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands. "It's been hard on you tonight. This subordinate has already prepared some spirit wine and spirit fruits for the disciples. Fellow Taoist, please come to the Clear Heart Hall." Just as Xiaohua was about to wave his hand and say something, Yu Hua, who was not far away, walked over. She didn't say anything. She only handed over a small package with a slightly red face. The folded part of the package revealed a corner of a navy blue robe. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4858. Xiaohua smiled. After receiving the package, he raised his hand and said, "Sect master, please. Fellow Taoist Zhang, this way please." Lu Hanhuan was overjoyed and hurriedly cupped his hands in greeting. "You all come over too." Xiaohua looked around and smiled at Nua Yeqing and the others. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly said, "Yes, Hongfeng, you all come over too. This flag. This old man still wants to listen carefully." After Xiaohua and the others left, the disciples of Yulan Palace also gradually dispersed. The children picked out by Xiaohua were also carefully taken away by the disciples. Among the many children, Zhu Xier's eyes were as bright as stars as she stared at Xiaohua's back, full of gratitude. Although she was still young, she also understood that from now on, her fate had changed, and the driving force behind this change was this very amiable-looking person who made her feel that the world was full of hope. Big brother. Xiao Hua and the others walked out of Yulan Palace. Lu Hanhuan took a few steps ahead of Xiao Hua and stood in the air, saying, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, please come with me." Xiao Hua nodded and stepped into the air. But when he took that step, Lu Hanhuan was once again shocked. Because although Xiao Hua was flying, there was no fluctuation of magic power around his body, and there was no change in the surrounding spiritual energy. Seeing Xiao Hua walk to his side in a few steps, Lu Hanhuan didn't have time to think too much. He nodded slightly and didn't dare to move too much. He just accompanied Xiao Hua as they flew towards Clear Heart Palace. The Bright Heart Palace was the largest palace on the mountain peak, and was several times larger than the Yulan Palace. Inside, the decorations were similarly gorgeous. What was special was that there were already quite a few female cultivators standing by the palace door, and all of them looked as beautiful as flowers. As soon as Xiao Hua entered, these female cultivators all looked at him curiously. Obviously, the matter of Yulan Palace had already reached their ears. At this time, Xiao Hua had already put on the clothes that Zhang Xiaohua brought over. The navy blue clothes were very fitting. Although Zhang Xiaohua's appearance was very ordinary, with this clothes, her ordinary appearance was enhanced by 30%. Of course, it was needless to say that Xiao Hua's appearance had been borrowed from the secret technique of the Green Hill sect. When the female cultivators saw Xiao Hua, their reactions were similar to Yue Hua and Yu Zhuahong's, but they felt that there was an indescribable intimacy and trust in Xiao Hua. They could not help but feel shy and surprised. Everyone sat down according to the host's and guest's position. These female cultivators began to serve spirit fruits and spirit wine. However, those who walked past Xiao Hua also stole glances at him, as if his face really did have Xiao Hua's face. Fellow Taoist Zhang. After the wine was prepared, Lu Hanhuan raised his cup and smiled. "Thank you for your help today, fellow Taoist. This spiritual wine is for you on behalf of the newly recruited disciples of the Qianxia sect. If not for your wisdom, these disciples would have been covered in dust. I will drink first as a sign of respect, please." After saying that, without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Lu Hanhuan raised his cup and drank it in one gulp. Fellow Taoist Zhang. Yu Zhuahong and the others also raised their cups and smiled. "We will accompany you." Xiao Hua did not like spirit wine, but seeing everyone raise their cups, he did not want to dampen their spirits. He raised his cup and said, "Everyone is too polite, please." Seeing Xiao Hua drink the spirit wine, Lu Hanhuan was even happier. He raised his hand and pointed at a reddish-yellow spirit fruit the size of a thumb in front of him. "Fellow Taoist Zhang, this is a specialty of my Fengyan country, called the heart-burning fruit. Not only does this thing taste excellent, but it is also good for refining meridians. Fellow Taoist might as well try it." Okay." Xiao Hua picked up a heart-burning fruit and placed it in his mouth. When he bit into the fruit, he didn't feel anything special in his mouth, but a kind of fragrance unexpectedly emerged from the bottom of his heart, and all his worries seemed to have been burned away. "Wonderful!" Xiao Hua praised. "This thing is really good." "In that case, fellow Taoist, please eat more." Lu Hanhuan smiled and motioned for a disciple to fill his and Xiao Hua's wine cups. Sect Master Lu." Xiao Hua took the heart-burning fruit and smiled as he tasted it. "I like to eat spirit fruits, but I am not good at drinking. A cup of spirit wine is already a bit dizzy. It is better to eat more spirit fruits." "Fine." Lu Hanhuan did not dare to force it. He withdrew his hand that was already on the wine cup and also picked up a heart-burning fruit. He smiled and said, "Then I toast fellow Taoist with a spirit fruit." Ha 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 ha. When Lu Hanhuan said this, the entire Clear Heart Palace was filled with laughter. Pang Lusheng and the others immediately laughed and said, "We will accompany fellow Taoist with a spirit fruit." After everyone had eaten a spirit fruit, Lu Hanhuan took out the banner and looked at Lu Qingyu. "Qingyu, Palace Master Xia has already reported this matter." This old man still wants to listen carefully. "Yes, Sect Master." Lu Qingyu did not dare to delay. He hurriedly stood up and explained the matter. Lu Hanhuan and the three elders only knew that Lu Qingyu had obtained the Heavenly Cycle Demon Subduing Star Formation's array flag of the fallen Immortal sect and the whereabouts of Spiritual Master Huang Qiong. However, they were not particularly clear about how he had obtained the array flag. Now that he heard that the array flag was actually given to them by Xiao Hua, Lu Hanhuan's eyes were filled with shock. Lu Hanhuan looked at the three elders and exchanged glances with each other. Then he said respectfully, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, I would like to confirm if this heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation, was it you who broke it? Is there spiritual master Huang Qiong's remains in the formation?" "Hee, fellow Taoist Lu, you are thinking too much," Xiao Hua said with a smile. This heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation was used by spiritual master Huang Qiong to transcend the tribulation. It must have gone through a lightning tribulation. I just happened to break the formation by chance. As for whether there is spiritual master Huang Qiong's remains in the formation, I have never seen it before. Of course I am not sure. It's like this, fellow Taoist Zhang. Lu Hanhuan said with a smile. I think you know that the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation is a secret formation of the fallen immortal sect. The fallen immortal sect is the largest cultivation sect in the Fengyan kingdom. The strength of the Qianhe sect is no match for the fallen immortal sect. Therefore, when we obtained the array flag, we had no other choice but to return it to the fallen immortal sect immediately and inform them that spiritual master Huang Qiong was transcending the tribulation in the Xia mountain range. However, I was afraid that I would cause trouble for you, so I asked for your opinion before returning it to the fallen immortal sect. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, I have already given the array flag to Yue Hua. You can do whatever you want with it. As for I, try not to mention it if you don't want to. If you really can't avoid it, just say it. It's okay. Okay, then I am relieved. Lu Hanhuan was overjoyed. He raised his cup and said, Let me propose another toast to you. Thank you for trusting my Qianhe sect. Okay. Xiao Hua had no choice but to raise his cup again. After finishing the second cup, Lu Hanhuan turned his head and said to Gao Cheng, Elder Gao, the matter of returning the array flag to the fallen celestial sect is very important to the Qianhe sect. I don't trust anyone else, so I have to trouble you to make the trip. I hope you can make it back in time before the deadline. Gao Cheng was not surprised by Lu Hanhuan's arrangement. He took the array flag and bowed. Sect leader, don't worry. I will definitely return the array flag to the fallen immortal sect and bring the disciples of the fallen immortal sect to the Xingyun Ridge. Okay, then I propose a toast to Elder Gao. Lu Hanhuan said and raised his cup again. Gao Cheng hurriedly took the cup and finished it. Then, he cupped his fists at Lu Hanhuan and left the Ming Xian Palace. After Gao Cheng left, the atmosphere in the Ming Xian Palace was a little gloomy. Yu Zhuohong looked at Yue Hua and asked knowingly, Yue Hua, the array flag of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array, was it you who found it, or Zhang? Yue Hua hurriedly stood up and said respectfully, Elder Yu, I have only heard of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array, but I have never seen it before. How could I recognize it? Not only did Senior Zhang obtain this banner, but he was also the one who broke the banner. Then, I noticed the strangeness of this banner and thought of the fallen immortal sect's heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation. Really? Surprise appeared on Yu Zhuohong's face. He looked toward Xiao Hua and said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, the fallen immortal sect's heavenly cycle devil subduing star array has always been their secret that they don't pass on. Even my sect master. I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to see through it for the time being. Could it be that fellow Taoist has seen this array somewhere before? Seeing that Yu Zhuohong was probing again, Xiao Hua was a little speechless. He thought for a moment, looked at the anticipation in Lu Hanhuan's eyes, and said with a smile, To be honest, I don't know what the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array is. Hearing Xiao Hua's denial, Lu Hanhuan's eyes were clearly disappointed. However, he only opened his mouth and did not force Xiao Hua to say anything. Instead, he forced a smile and raised his cup, saying, It's okay. I am already very grateful that Zhang is magnanimous enough to give the array flag of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array to my Chan sect. Please. At this moment, Pang Luxing was clearly sending a voice transmission anxiously, as if urging something. Xiao Hua smiled and picked up his wine cup again. Although he hadn't fully recovered his divine powers and couldn't use clairvoyance, because he had formed a body of laws, some of his divine powers were innately powerful. Therefore, he did not listen to anything. Pang Liuxing's voice transmission had already entered his ears intermittently. Although Pang Liuxing's words were not very clear, They were nothing more than asking for orders to force Xiao Hua to take out the heavenly cycle demon-subduing star array. However, Lu Hanhuan did not agree and only raised his cup to signal Xiao Hua to drink. Xiao Hua looked at Lu Hanhuan thoughtfully, raised his cup, and said with a smile, "Sect Master Lu, please." "Please." Lu Hanhuan felt bitter in his mouth and poured the spirit wine into his mouth. Before he could put the cup down, Xiao Hua said, "I don't know what the heavenly cycle demon-subduing star array is, but I am proficient in a kind of capital star array. It looks similar to the heavenly cycle demon-subduing star array." Pfft. Lu Hanhuan immediately spat out the spirit wine in his mouth. Of course, before the spirit wine landed on the jade table in front of him, Lu Hanhuan immediately waved his hand and a layer of green flames flashed, burning the spirit wine. Then, Lu Hanhuan's face turned slightly red and he smiled apologetically. "Fellow Taoist Zhang, you must be joking. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, collect it, and reward it. Thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 48-59. It's okay, it's okay. Xiao Hua waved his hand and looked at Lu Hanhuan meaningfully. "I think you've always wanted to ask about the heavenly cycle demon-subduing star array, right? But why did you stop at this time? If it were another sect leader, I'm afraid he would have asked directly before the toast, right?" This. Lu Hanhuan hesitated for a moment and smiled bitterly. "It's not that I don't want to ask, but I think the heavenly cycle demon-subduing star array is extraordinary. Even if my Xianxia sect uses all our resources, we can't make a deal with you. And you've helped my Xianxia sect before, so I don't want to force you too much. If you're willing to help, you'll naturally agree. If you're not willing to help, then just pretend I didn't say anything." "Ha ha." Xiao Hua laughed, raised his wine cup and said, "Come, sect leader Lu, I toast you, a very incompetent sect leader." "Haha. Fellow Zhang, please." Lu Hanhuan's embarrassment disappeared, and he raised his wine cup and drank it. Xiao Hua put down his wine cup and looked down at his Taoist robe. He smiled and said, "In this poor Taoist's eyes, the capital star formation isn't worth as much as this Taoist robe. Since fairy moonlight gave this Taoist robe to this poor Taoist, how could this poor Taoist not return the favor and give the capital star formation to this poor Taoist?" Really? When Lu Hanhuan heard this, he couldn't help but lose his composure and blurted out. Moonlight, who was not far away, blushed and lowered her head. Ugh. Xiao Hua saw that the situation was a little awkward and knew that what he said was inappropriate. He hurriedly said with a smile, "Of course. Didn't Zhu Xier just say that? The kindness of receiving a drop of water from others should be repaid with a gushing spring. Since the Moonlight Fairy can give me clothes to cover myself, how can I not repay her? It's just that. What does fellow Zhang want? Please say it, as long as my Xianxia sect has it, we can satisfy it." Lu Hanhuan's breathing was a little rapid, and he asked urgently, "I just want to take a look at some of your sect's ancient records." "Oh, sect leader Lu, don't worry. It's not the ancient records of your sect's techniques, but the ancient records of the Yilin continent." Xiao Hua understood Lu Hanhuan's feelings very well, and decided to speak his mind. However, Lu Hanhuan really couldn't believe his ears. He asked in surprise, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, is that all you want?" "That's right, that's the only request." "Sect leader Lu doesn't agree?" Xiao Hua asked with a smile. "How could I not agree?" Lu Hanhuan agreed without hesitation. "However, I feel that this is too unfair for you, fellow Taoist." Sect leader Yu Hua, who was not far away, was still blushing. She hurriedly got up and said, "That day, Senior Zhang mentioned the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance and the Wuming Mountain Range. I don't know where the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance is, but I have seen the Wuming Mountain Range in the ancient books of the sect, so I told Senior Zhang about it. I guess Senior Zhang has something to do in the Wuming Mountain Range." "The Moonlight Fairy is right." Xiao Hua nodded. "I do have something to do in the Wuming Mountain Range, so I want to borrow the ancient books of the Xianxia sect. The Wuming Mountain Range." Lu Hanhuan was a little surprised. He looked at Xiao Hua in confusion and asked curiously, "Fellow Taoist, why are you going there?" That place is really far from my Fengyan kingdom. Even I only know the name. As for the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance, to tell you the truth, I have never even heard of it. I only know that the fallen immortal sect belongs to the Tsupu Immortal Alliance, and the Fengyan kingdom is also within the sphere of influence of the Tsupu Immortal Alliance. My Xianxia sect is not qualified to enter the Tsupu Immortal Alliance, so I don't have more information about the Immortal Alliance. Even if you read all the ancient books of my Xianxia sect, I'm afraid you won't get anything useful. Seeing that Lu Hanhuan was so honest and refused to take advantage of him, Xiaohua was even more willing to fulfill his wish. He smiled and said, the Xianxia sect may not have this information. Sect leader Lu can go elsewhere to look for it. At this point, if Lu Hanhuan still didn't understand, he was really stupid. He cupped his hands and said, thank you, fellow Taoist Zhang. I'll order my disciples to go to the nearby auction to find the information you want. After that, Lu Hanhuan turned to Yu Zhuahong and said, Elder Yu, I'll leave it to you. Yes, I'll do as you say. Yu Zhuahong stood up and said, I'll arrange the disciples. Sect leader Lu, don't worry. Xiaohua quickly raised his hand and said. Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, fellow Taoist Zhang, is there anything else? Sect leader Lu just said that the Xianxia sect is a small sect. I'm afraid there aren't many crystals in the sect. Moreover, these crystal stones also need to support the cultivation of the disciples. How can this poor Taoist have the nerve to compete with them for crystal stones? Xiaohua said, and then said to Nuoyeqing, Nuoyeqing, give this old man a few jade slips. Fellow Taoist Zhang, you're too polite. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly stood up and said, fellow Taoist, what you want to give my Xianxia sect is a priceless treasure. It's nothing for my Xianxia sect to take out some crystals. Xiaohua smiled and didn't say anything. However, Nuoyeqing didn't come over. Instead, she was holding a spirit fruit in her hand and seemed to be in a daze. She was far from being as clever as before. Xiaohua frowned slightly and said, Nuoyeqing? Nuoyeqing woke up and hurriedly put down the spirit fruit. She stood up and said, Senior Zhang, give me a few blank jade slips. Xiaohua ordered. Nuoyeqing didn't dare to ask more. She took out a few jade slips and handed them to Xiaohua respectfully. Xiaohua took them and used his divine sense to explore them. After a while, he handed the jade slips to Nuoyeqing and said, give these cultivation methods for selecting disciples to Elder Yu. Yes. Nuoyeqing nodded. However, just as she took the jade slips, she was shocked again. Her hands trembled a little and she said anxiously, Senior, is this the secret method that you use to find the spiritual roots? That's right. Xiaohua nodded and then said to Yu Zhuahong, now that the spiritual energy in the Yilin continent has changed, the previous method of selecting disciples has lost its effectiveness. All the sects are now worried about recruiting disciples. If this secret method is put up for auction, it will definitely be able to fetch a good price. Elder Yu, you can use these crystals to bid for some information about the Wu Meng Mountain Range and the Defeat Yu Immortal Alliance. If there is any other information that Elder Yu thinks is useful, you can also bid for it. Yu Zhuahong was a little stunned. She said in disbelief, fellow Taoist Zhang, it's just some information. Fellow Taoist actually took out such a precious secret method. Xiaohua knew what Yu Zhuahong was thinking. He smiled and stopped Yu Zhuahong's words, saying, in I's eyes, information is much more precious than this secret method. Furthermore, our Dao sect's development in the Yilin continent has reached a bottleneck. This secret method is the only way to solve this bottleneck. I feel that it is necessary and also my responsibility to announce the secret method. Hiss. Even Lu Hanhuan sucked in a breath of cold air and said in shock, fellow Taoist Zhang, you mean, this secret method can be copied and sold in large quantities? Instead of just bidding for one set? Of course. Xiaohua said with a smile, if only one copy is sold, do you think Elder Yuan has the ability to escape from the control of other sects? Then my Xianxia sect can also keep a copy? Although Lu Hanhuan already knew in his heart, he couldn't help but confirm again. Of course. Why not? Xiaohua asked back. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Zhang. Lu Hanhuan smiled and raised his wine cup, saying, fellow Taoist, please drink this cup to express my Xianxia sect's gratitude. You can't drink any more. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, I don't like drinking wine. Just now, I drank a few cups and already drank too much. I appreciate sect leader Lu's feelings. Okay. Lu Hanhuan didn't dare to force it. As he spoke, he drank the spirit wine in one gulp and sighed. I haven't seen a cultivator as magnanimous as fellow Taoist for a long time. If it was someone else, I'm afraid they would treat this secret method as a treasure and wouldn't let it go without a high price. It's not necessary. Xiao Hua twisted a spirit fruit and said, as long as the secret method of selecting disciples exists, it will definitely be leaked. Not to mention your Xianxia sect, even the fallen celestial sect will come after hearing the news. Instead of facing such a strong enemy, it's better to put this secret method in the auction and get some benefits. Yes, I understand. Yu Shuahong nodded. I will personally copy some secret methods and bring my capable disciples to the auction in the Xiahong mountain. Elder Yu, I'll have to trouble you. Lu Hanhuan saw that Yu Shuahong was also going out and couldn't help but hesitate. However, he thought that if the secret method of selecting disciples appeared in the auction, it would definitely cause a sensation. Among the remaining disciples of the Xianxia sect, only Elder Yu had the ability to retreat calmly. Therefore, he could only ask Elder Yu for help. When Yu Shuahong left, Lu Hanhuan habitually raised his cup again. However, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Xiao Hua had already said that he wouldn't drink anymore, so he naturally couldn't persuade him to drink anymore. Moreover, Xiao Hua only wanted information about the Wuming Mountain range. Xiao Hua had already given the secret method of selecting disciples to the Xianxia sect. If he asked him to ask for the Du Tian star formation again, he felt a little guilty. Xiao Hua looked at this thin-skinned sect leader and smiled in his heart. He knew that this was a cultivator like him who was not suitable to be a sect leader. Therefore, he didn't make things difficult for Lu Hanhuan and said, Sect leader Lu, as for the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation just now, I think it's better for your sect not to have it. Lu Hanhuan felt bitter in his mouth and smiled apologetically. Yes, I know that my Xianxia sect really can't afford to pay more for the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation. No. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Sect leader Lu misunderstood me. I think that another formation is more suitable for your sect. Ah? Lu Hanhuan was really overjoyed. He shouted, Fellow Zhang, could it be that there's another formation similar to the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation? Of course, after Lu Hanhuan finished speaking, he regretted it and hurriedly changed his words. Haha, fellow Zhang, I'm a little greedy. There's no need for a formation similar to the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation. A formation similar to it is enough. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4860. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, Sect leader Lu, don't be anxious. Listen to me slowly. Yes, I'm not in a hurry. Have a taste of the spirit fruit first. Lu Hanhuan was so happy that he didn't know what to do. He picked up the spirit fruit from the jade table and said carefully. Xiao Hua nodded slightly and ate a few spirit fruits. He said, I don't know if the fallen immortal sect's heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation is complete, but since it's the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation of the fallen immortal sect, it doesn't matter if their formation is complete or not. It's not suitable for your sect to control the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation. Unless your sect doesn't want to have a foothold in the Fengyan kingdom. Hiss. Lu Hanhuan took a deep breath and came to a realization. The Xianxia sect didn't dare to keep the formation flags used by the Royal Dome spiritual master. They didn't even dare to enter the incomplete formation. How could they dare to have the same heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation as the fallen immortal sect? If this news was leaked out, not only would the fallen immortal sect not allow the Xianxia sect to exist in this world, their enemies would also extend their evil hands to the Xianxia sect. Lu Hanhuan stood up and bowed. Thank you for your reminder. I was too happy to see the formation and didn't think of so many advantages and disadvantages. Don't mention it. Xiao Hua waved his hand. We're both cultivators and humans. It's inevitable that we'll think of something. Then Xiao Hua looked at Nua Yeqing and said, Give me another blank jade slip. Yes, senior. When Nua Yeqing saw Xiao Hua repeatedly asking for jade slips from him, He knew that this was attracting the attention of the sect head. He felt grateful in his heart, and hurriedly took out a blank jade slip and respectfully handed it over. Lu Hanhuan didn't expect Xiao Hua to do it immediately. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Brother Zhang, there's no need to rush. It's okay." Xiao Hua took the jade slip and used his spiritual sense to check it. He said, "It's just a formation. It'll be done soon." Lu Hanhuan's expression changed slightly. He thought to himself, "It's just a formation? How can the fallen immortal sex formation be set up so easily? Could it be that this fellow is a senior?" As he thought of this, he could not help but look at Pang Luxing. Pang Liuxing's expression was also uncertain. Sure enough, in less than half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua had already engraved the formation into the jade slip. However, he didn't pass it to Lu Hanhuan. Instead, he tossed it to Yu Hua and said, "Yu Xianxia, thank you, Hongfeng, Zhangji, and Lu Qingyu. This is something I promised all of you before. I hope it can help your Chan sect." Yu Hua quickly got up and took the jade slip. She was happy but also a bit disappointed. She respectfully bowed and said, "Junior thanks Senior for the gift." After Yue Hua handed the jade slip to Lu Hanhuan, Xiao Hua explained, "Inside the jade slip is the array formation method of the Pleiades devil-devouring immortal formation. Since sect leader Lu only has the strength of a nascent soul realm cultivator, I only left a simple version for the Xianxia sect. Sect leader Lu and the 3 elders only need to refine 108 array flags and 1 array disc to set up the array. Furthermore, in I's opinion, if sect leader Lu and the 3 elders can set up this array, your realms will definitely improve even further." Lu Hanhuan had originally used his divine perception to check the jade slip. The exquisiteness of the formation had already shocked him greatly. Now that he heard Xiao Hua's explanation, how could he not know that he had met a senior? He didn't have time to look at the jade slip anymore. He hurriedly bowed again and said, "Junior greets Senior Zhang. Earlier I was really rude." "Hee, there's no need for that." Xiao Hua calmly waved his hand and said, "I didn't reveal my identity, so I can't blame you. Furthermore, I have some fate with these disciples of your Xianxia sect, so I don't mind these customs." Senior. Although Pang Luxing didn't see the formation in the jade slip, he believed in Lu Hanhuan's judgment. Since Lu Hanhuan thought that Xiao Hua was a senior, he didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly got up and bowed. "Forgive me for being blind. I really didn't expect that. In this era where high-level cultivators are all living in seclusion, there would still be a senior walking around the Yilin continent." Xiao Hua asked curiously, "What do you mean? Why would high-level cultivators live in seclusion?" "Ha!" Lu Hanhuan and Pang Luxing were taken aback by Xiao Hua's words. Then, the two of them looked at each other in disbelief before falling to their knees at almost the same time and crying out, "Senior, save us! Senior Zhang!" Seeing their sect master fall to his knees, Xiafeng, Yun Songyu, and Hongfeng hurriedly knelt down and said, "Please save our Xianxia sect." Xiao Hua had already learned something from Lu Qingyu and the others. Seeing them all kneel down, he smiled bitterly in his heart. He was a Grand Ascension stage human cultivator, but the problem was, he hadn't recovered his strength yet. Who knew what kind of danger the Xianxia sect was in? He couldn't just casually answer in a situation where he couldn't ascertain the situation. Strangely, before Xiao Hua had a chance to speak, Lu Hanhuan turned and said, "Xiafeng, you and the other disciples are to leave the Bright Heart Palace. Without my permission, you're not to enter at will." "Yes, we understand," Xiafeng answered and left with the other disciples. However, they all had a faint smile on their faces because they already knew that Xiao Hua was a warm-hearted senior. He would definitely not abandon the Xianxia sect. Xiao Hua didn't disappoint Yu Hua and the others. After the disciples left, he asked, "Sect Master Lu, what kind of danger has your Xianxia sect encountered?" Unexpectedly, Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, "Senior Zhang, our Xianxia sect has indeed encountered a crisis. However, now that we have the formation flag that you gave to Nua Yeqing, I have sent Elder Gao to the fallen immortal sect. I believe that with the mediation of the fallen immortal sect's disciples, this crisis is not a crisis. This junior doesn't dare to trouble Senior Zhang with this matter." "Oh, so that's your plan." Xiao Hua nodded and said, "Then I understand. I wonder if the two of you—" "Oh, Did you encounter any problems in your cultivation? That's not right. The two of you are still quite a distance away from the bottleneck of the peak nascent soul stage. Xiaohua said casually, but every word he said made Lu Hanhuan and Pang Liuxing's hearts skip a beat. It was as if their cultivation realms were nothing in front of this seemingly ordinary cultivator. Senior, it's like this. After Xiaohua finished asking, Lu Hanhuan respectfully explained the matter. Pang Liuxing also smiled and said, Senior, since we late nascent soul stage cultivators can feel the passage of our lifespan, then the spirit severing stage, void refinement stage, and unity stage seniors must have sensed it long ago. This is also the fundamental reason why there haven't been many high-level seniors in our Fengyan country recently, so this junior misunderstood senior. Yes. Lu Hanhuan quickly said, since senior didn't sense the passage of your lifespan, there must be some secret technique. This junior earnestly requests senior. Speaking up to here, Lu Hanhuan was unable to continue speaking, and even he himself felt slightly embarrassed. After all, he and Xiaohua were neither relatives nor friends, and they had no relationship at all. How could Xiaohua possibly casually pass down such a precious secret technique to him? Unexpectedly, Xiaohua frowned and said without any hesitation, Sect Master Lu, it's not that this old man is selfish and doesn't want to pass on the secret technique to the two of you. It's because this old man has just come out of seclusion. This old man. Before I went into seclusion, the changes in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth were not obvious, and this old man has not encountered the passage of my lifespan. Therefore, this old man has no secret technique to pass on to the two of you. Perhaps in a few days, this old man will also inform you of the passage of my lifespan. Oh, so that's how it is. Lu Hanhuan and Pang Liuxing suddenly understood. They did not suspect him, because Xiaohua's explanation of coming out of seclusion just so happened to confirm the matter of him crashing into the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array. As for breaking through the realm and entering, it was not something the two of them could understand with their cultivation levels, so they could not possibly think in that direction. Seeing that the two of them were a little disappointed, Xiaohua said with a smile, Don't be anxious. This old man will take a look at the situation first. If there is also a limit to the passage of my lifespan, this old man will think of a way. If I have any insights, not only will I tell you, but I will also tell others. Senior is really merciful. Pang Liuxing couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Lu Hanhuan, on the other hand, was ecstatic. In that case, Senior is going to stay in my Nebula Ridge for a period of time? Hee, of course. Xiaohua smiled. This old man has put in a lot of effort in your Jianghu sect. How can I succeed if I don't gain anything? Yes, this junior understands. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly replied. This junior will arrange for my disciple. No, senior. Please take a look at my Nebula Ridge first. This junior will immediately arrange a quiet room for you. There's no need to trouble yourself. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, This old man wants to take a look at the ancient books of your sect now. I wonder if it's convenient for you. Lu Hanhuan only hesitated for a moment, secretly wondering if he should tidy up the Lapse Palace where the ancient books of the sect were stored. However, he then smiled bitterly again. Among the cultivation methods of the Jianghu sect, the highest cultivation method could only be cultivated to the spirit severing stage. Even if he was lucky enough to break through to the spirit severing stage, he would still have to go to the auction house to buy void refinement realm cultivation methods in the future. It could be said that all the ancient books in the Lapse Palace might not be as valuable as the Pleiades Sun Devil devouring immortal formation that Xiaohua had previously given to the Jianghu sect, not to mention that Xiaohua had also given the Jianghu sect a method to select disciples' spiritual roots. Why should I hide it in front of Xiaohua? Hence, Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, Since senior is so anxious, this junior will accompany you to the Lapse Palace. The Lapse Palace stores the ancient books that my Jianghu sect has collected since the establishment of the sect, including cultivation methods, refining methods, the Tao of pill refinement, and so on. Then this old man will wait first. Xiaohua immediately replied, We'll talk about it after sect leader Lu tidies up. No need. Lu Hanhuan replied without hesitation. Now, my Jianghu sect no longer hides anything from senior. Senior, please go ahead. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4861. Good. Xiao Hua liked Lu Hanhuan's straightforwardness and said with a smile, "When the other disciples come tomorrow, I will help you select disciples first. Then, I will find some time to see if there are any changes in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and give you some cultivation methods." Thank you, Senior Zhang. Lu Hanhuan was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth and begged in a low voice, "If possible, can you give me some void refinement cultivation methods?" Of course. Xiao Hua didn't refuse at all. Not to mention void refinement cultivation methods, even body fusion cultivation methods were just firewood in the eyes of the great sages of the human race. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiao Hua couldn't enter the space and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth didn't change, Xiao Hua could take out a few cultivation methods and give them to Lu Hanhuan now. Why wait until tomorrow? Senior, please. With Xiao Hua's promise, although Lu Hanhuan didn't use his magic power, his figure was about to fly away. The Hall of Time was a very different hall from the Clear Heart Hall and the Jade Orchid Hall. Strange runes were engraved on the door of the hall like floating clouds. On the stone wall, there was a picture that looked like a rainbow that crossed the sun hanging on the roof of the Hall of Time. As soon as he stepped into the Hall of Time, Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel that time was passing by. He withdrew his gaze from the runes around him and stared at the roof of the hall with a frown for about half a cup of tea's time. Senior. Only Lu Hanhuan accompanied Xiao Hua. Seeing Xiao Hua frown, he was a little puzzled and asked in a low voice, "Is there something wrong with this mural? This rainbow crossing the sun painting? Which fellow Taoist of your sect left it behind?" Xiao Hua suddenly asked. Lu Hanhuan looked at the familiar mural and shook his head. "Since I joined the Chanhe sect, this mural has been here. As for which senior left it behind, I don't know." "Why? Is there something wrong with this mural?" Xiao Hua nodded and said, "Yes, this is a very powerful Dao formation. However, activating the formation requires a formation tool. Since sect leader Lu doesn't know the origin of the mural, the formation tool must have been lost." "No way." Lu Hanhuan was a little dumbfounded because he never thought that this mere mural was actually a powerful magic array. Then Lu Hanhuan asked anxiously, "Then, Senior, do you know what the sun-crossing rainbow array looks like?" Xiao Hua shrugged, with an appearance of wanting to help but unable to do so. He replied, "Sect Master Lu, I'm not by Shaoxing, I only know that this is a formation diagram. As for what the formation treasure is used to activate the formation diagram, I'm afraid only your sect's disciples would know, right?" Yes. Lu Hanhuan nodded with a smile and led Xiao Hua to the side of the hall. On one side of the elapsing palace, there were many sun crowns of various sizes. The faint sunlight from the rainbow painting shone on these sun crowns like pillars. What was extremely strange was that although the source of the sunlight was the same, the position of the needle on the corona was different. Furthermore, when Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over the place, he could clearly see that there were a total of 365 corona in the elapsing palace. The position of the crown needle on each corona was different, and it just so happened to cover a complete crown. Moreover, at every moment, the shadow cast by the crown needle of the 365 corona was changing, but the shadow cast by each crown needle was absolutely not overlapping. "Senior." As Lu Hanhuan spoke, he raised his right hand, and from the jade ring on his left hand, he took out a magic tool that looked like a candle, and respectfully handed it over to Xiao Hua. "This is the magic tool to open the Hall of Time, Senior, please take it first." Xiao Hua didn't take the magic tool, but looked at Lu Hanhuan with a smile and didn't say anything. Lu Hanhuan didn't understand at first, but after a moment, he suddenly realized something. His eyes flashed with a strange color, and his heart couldn't help but beat wildly in his chest. "This, Senior Zhang. So his magic power is gone." A voice screamed in Lu Hanhuan's heart. "No wonder. I didn't see him use his magic power, and even when we were going from the Yulan Palace to the Clear Heart Palace, I didn't see him use any escape technique." Lu Hanhuan knew better than anyone what it meant to be a void refinement or unity stage cultivator who had lost all his magic power. In an instant, a dark joy appeared in his heart. That scream was the publicity of the devil in his heart. However, it was only for a moment, and Lu Hanhuan's expression calmed down again. Although he couldn't be considered a decisive sect leader, he was a qualified human cultivator. The ecstasy in his eyes disappeared, and he smiled at Xiao Hua. While activating his magic power, he cast a simple spell on the magic tool. Swish. With a light sound, it was as if a candle in the dark night had been lit. A layer of crimson brilliance emerged from the magic tool, and all of a sudden, the surrounding darkness was driven away. That crimson light was reflected in Lu Hanhuan's eyes, and similarly, it produced a brilliant brilliance, dispelling the darkness in his eyes. Lu Hanhuan held the lit magic tool and walked in front of a corona. He stared at it for a moment, and then carefully waved his hand. The magic tool was thrown on the corona, and it completely overlapped with the flashing needle. Boom! With a slight rumbling sound, the corona trembled and flew in front of Lu Hanhuan. Shwa! The corona needle on the corona split into two and spun in two different directions. Two black and white brilliance rippled on the surface of the corona like water ripples. Bang! When the two water ripples collided, they set off layers of ripples. In these ripples, the corona expanded rapidly, and a magic tool that was very similar to the rainbow on the roof of the palace appeared. The magic tool was divided into 12 layers, and each layer had a different color. Moreover, there were more or less jade slips on each layer. Senior! Lu Hanhuan raised his hand and pointed at the magic tool, explaining, "This long rainbow pavilion stores the ancient books that my Xianxia sect has accumulated for generations. There are no restrictions in the long rainbow pavilion. Senior, please feel free to read them." With that, Lu Hanhuan took out a jade slip from the long rainbow pavilion and handed it to Xiao Hua. Then, he pointed at a random place in the long rainbow pavilion. Bang! The long rainbow pavilion trembled slightly and quickly shrank. When it returned to the shape of a corona, the candle-like magic tool also fell from it. Lu Hanhuan caught the candle-like magic tool and handed it to Xiao Hua respectfully. He turned and left without any hesitation. Looking at Lu Hanhuan's back, Xiao Hua smiled. He then looked at the jade slip in his hand and didn't look at it. Instead, he sat down cross-legged and rubbed his chin as he thought to himself, "When I left the demon realm, I was ambushed by the Fire Phoenix King. But man proposes, God disposes. Not only did I not die under the impact of the realm, I even made it to the Yilin continent. Although I don't know if this Yilin continent is the Dao Heaven realm, this is the other side of the Million Meng Mountains. I'm 50% sure. No, it should be 80% sure. Because the spiritual energy change in the Yilin continent is almost exactly the same as the spiritual energy change in the Xiaoyu continent in my memory. As long as I get the news of the Immortal Alliance and the Xiaoyu continent from the Qianxia sect or the auction in the Fengyan kingdom, this matter will be confirmed. If I can confirm that the Yilin continent is a part of the Xiaoyu continent, then I only need to pass through the Wuming mountain range to find the Witch King of the Witch King token and return to the Xiaoyu continent. It has already been nearly 30 years since I left the West Sea of the three continents. Although the process has been tortuous, this Xiao has still followed the previous plan to the last few steps. The time left for this Xiao seems to be quite sufficient. However, I still have a few difficulties. I'm afraid it's not easy to make a decision." Xiao Hua thought and frowned. "First, I have no spiritual power. It's even worse than when I was in the 10,000 demon realm. Whether it's the space, the Naiwan palace, the middle Dantian, or the lower Dantian, I can't sense them. Especially, my physical body and many of my avatars are slowly condensing and recovering. I don't know how long this process will take. Second, the impact of the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is too great. It's so great that the entire Dao sect can't bear it. It's really far beyond my expectations. Nascent soul cultivators are going through tribulation. This is a fatal blow to the Yilin continent and the Xiaoyu continent's cultivators. They may not have time to temper their bodies before facing the lightning tribulation. There's an 80 to 90% chance that they will die. For the Fortune Gates disciples, this is just bad news. It increases the difficulty of their cultivation, but it may not be fatal. But, because of the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the lifespan of spirit-severing cultivators is inexplicably decreasing. This is not something the Fortune Gates disciples can deal with. Even if they pass the lightning tribulation and become nascent soul or spirit-severing cultivators, what's the use? Could it be that they are like the high-level cultivators of the Yilin continent, hiding in the heavenly paradise and not daring to come out? If so, Xiong Yi Li Xiang and the others should have stayed in the 10,000 demon realm. They shouldn't have returned to the Xiaoyu continent. When Xiao Hua thought of this, he was suddenly shocked. He almost opened his eyes and whispered, "Not good. If the spiritual energy of heaven and earth changes like this, when I destroy the immortal array, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth will kill all the world-destroying mayflies. Lu Yi and the others. Won't they have to face the same predicament that the high-level cultivators of the Yilin continent are facing now? How can they cultivate to the Mahayana realm? How can they ascend to the immortal world? Moreover, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is so unfavorable for us Dao sect cultivators. What about the Confucian cultivators? What about the Buddhist disciples? But if I don't lead the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into the three continents, under the attack of the world-destroying mayflies, the billions of lives on the three continents will be exterminated. It's impossible for me not to destroy the immortal array." Xiaohua immediately felt that he was in a dilemma. What should I do? 10,000 demon realm. Without thinking too much, Xiaohua naturally thought of the 10,000 demon realm. However, this thought only lasted for a moment before he strangled it again. P.S. The development of the plot has been slow recently, so I've added an update today. Thank you all for your support, and a special thank you to the Wandering Dragon Holiday Alliance leader. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and Chapter 4862. Return to the 10,000 demon realm. It's easy to say but difficult to do. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Let's not talk about how difficult it is to cross the realm. Even with this Zhao's cultivation, I can't cross between two mature realms, let alone those low-level cultivators. Just the Yilin continent, Xiaoyu continent, and the other three continents. There is no space passage that can be used. Our human race's cultivators can't set foot in the 10,000 demon realm. If the 10,000 demon realm is not possible, then there is only the Shenhua continent. Xiaohua also thought of his own space. The Fortune Gate's disciples are easy, just let them go in directly. But what about the other disciples? How can they listen to this Xiao? Moreover, although this Xiao has the Kunlun mirror as a cover, the Kunlun immortal realm is after all an illusion, it can't accommodate so many cultivators. Especially, this Xiao's immortal ascension lightning tribulation is imminent. The changes in the Shenhua continent are also imminent. This Xiao doesn't dare to take so many human cultivators with him. AI, what can I do? Xiaohua was very worried. Indeed, before the first wave had subsided, another wave had arisen. Even when the sky was bright and Lu Hanhuan was waiting outside the passage palace, Xiaohua still couldn't think of a suitable solution. Forget it. Xiaohua stood up and made a decision. Even if this Xiao has a space beast void in this space, it is only one space beast. How can it deal with so many strange insects in the three continents? Therefore, the immortal array of the three continents and the Xiaoyu continent must be broken. Otherwise, the world-exterminating mayflies in the three continents will not be able to be completely exterminated. Moreover, under the changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the immortal array will be corroded sooner or later. The cultivators of the three continents will have to face this cruel reality sooner or later. This Xiao will only destroy the immortal array so that they will have to face it one day earlier. This Xiao's magic power has not recovered, and my doppelgangers have not completely condensed. It is useless for this Xiao to think too much. It is better to wait for my doppelgangers to come out, then this Xiao will discuss with them. I'll take advantage of this time to look at the news of the Fengyan kingdom and the records of the Chanhe sect. Who knows, I might be able to find something. Xiaohua didn't have much time left, but it wasn't short either. Xiaohua's divine ability was no longer recovering, and it was impossible for him to pass through the millions of Meng mountains. As for the recovery of his fleshly body and divine ability, Xiaohua didn't have a good solution for now. Therefore, the best solution for him now was to stick to the status quo. As soon as he walked out of the evanescent palace, Lu Hanhuan immediately approached him and said respectfully, Junior did not dare to disturb Senior's quiet cultivation, but last night, Junior had sent an order for the children who are waiting to be selected to gather in the Magnolia Palace early in the morning. Junior boldly asks Senior to leave your seclusion and quickly deal with this matter. Well said. Xiaohua replied, then started walking towards the direction of the Yulan Palace. Lu Hanhuan could clearly see that Xiaohua wasn't using any magic power. He was just walking in the air. Wherever his feet landed, the void was like flat ground. What What kind of divine ability is this? Lu Hanhuan was aghast. Could it be that what Senior Zhang said last night was to test me? While Lu Hanhuan was thinking, Xiao Hua had already walked more than 100 feet away. Then, he turned his head and asked meaningfully, Sect Master Lu? Aren't you going to the Yulan Palace? Yes, yes. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly moved his body and accompanied Xiao Hua, flying all the way to the Yulan Palace. At this moment, the Yulan Palace was completely silent. Nearly 10,000 children were sitting cross-legged in several areas. The situation was similar to last night. Seeing Xiao Hua and Lu Hanhuan come in, all the disciples of Chanha sect bowed and said, Greetings Senior Zhang, greetings Sect Master. Wait for me. Xiao Hua looked around and waved his hand to indicate that he should get up. Lu Hanhuan said in a low voice, In order to shorten the time, Junior gathered all the disciples who are waiting to be selected here. Senior only needs to point out which disciples are suitable. Teach a man to fish rather than give him a fish. Sect Master Lu, you are a little impatient. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Leave behind 500 disciples who are waiting to be selected. Send the rest out of the Yulan Palace. Then, find another 50 disciples of the Yulan Palace and let them comprehend the secret technique I gave you last night. Since I am going to stay in Chanha's sect for a while, I might as well teach you all the secret technique. Senior, Lu Hanhuan said in a low voice, almost choking with sobs. In his life, other than his master, there was no other cultivator who treated him like this, right? Oh. Don't tell me you didn't make arrangements last night, and didn't let Xiafeng choose the disciples of the Yulan Palace to start comprehending the secret technique of selecting spiritual roots. Xiao Hua smiled at Lu Hanhuan and asked. Lu Hanhuan bowed respectfully and said, Senior Zhang, Junior knows that Senior's cultivation is important, so I was afraid to disturb Senior. But Junior didn't expect Senior to be so patient with my Chanha sect. Junior feels ashamed. Tisk. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, Don't think of me as too noble. I'm just using the disciples of your Chanha sect as an experiment to see how to modify the cultivation method and how to adapt to this mutated spiritual energy. When Lu Hanhuan heard this, he was stunned at first, but then he became even more respectful. He smiled and said, Senior, please wait for a moment. Junior will make arrangements. Then, Lu Hanhuan asked Xiafeng and Yun Songyu to come over. After giving the order, Xiafeng and Yun Songyu were also overjoyed. Yun Songyu flew back to arrange for the disciples to bring the extra children out of the Yulan Palace. Xiafeng accompanied Lu Hanhuan and reported, Sect Master, Senior Zhang, Junior has already selected 30 disciples last night and let them comprehend the secret technique. Junior and Vice Palace Master Yun also took a look. This secret technique isn't amazing, but the so-called spiritual roots, the so-called mutated spiritual roots, it's really hard for us to understand. Moreover, we were in a hurry to refine those testing artifacts, so it wasn't easy to prepare them. So, I'm here today. Xiao Hua said unhurriedly, I'm going to teach you little by little, including how to refine instruments, and even how to refine pills. Good, good. Xiafeng was not the only one who was overjoyed. Even Lu Hanhuan lost his composure. The two of them could only nod like chickens pecking at rice. Xiao Hua changed the topic and said, However, I have a request. Senior, please tell us. As long as the Chanha sect can do it, we'll definitely do it. Lu Hanhuan said, his eyes almost looking at the moon in the distance. Chanha sect can't hide these refining techniques, pill refining tricks, and even the modified cultivation methods. You must make them public. Of course you can keep your own cultivation methods. Xiao Hua's request surprised Lu Hanhuan. Xiafeng jumped up and shouted, Senior, these cultivation methods are yours. How can you just make them public? Xiao Hua looked at the warlike Taoist cultivator and said, Xiafeng, you have to know that with the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Taoism is in a period of depression and decline. At this time, cultivation is no longer important. The survival of Taoism is the key. These cultivation techniques might be superficial, but they were still sparks. They could attract the attention of others and allow others to use them as a reference. This was much more important than simply allowing the Chanhe sect to rise. Also, don't worry. If the cultivation methods come from Chanha sect will definitely be famous. Similarly, if nothing unexpected happens, Xianxia sect will definitely be comparable to the fallen celestial sect in the future. Okay. Xiaofeng shrugged and said, anyway, these cultivation methods and secret techniques belong to you. Senior, you can do whatever you want with them. Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, Senior, I'll take these cultivation methods to the auction house. This is a way to make it public, right? Of course, of course. Xiao Hua said with a smile. This is the safest way and the best way to attract people's attention. If you give it away for nothing, people will treat it as trash. Only if you pay enough crystals will they really take it seriously. Thank you, Senior. Lu Hanhuan had no other way to express his gratitude except to thank him. He seemed to have seen the rise of Xianxia sect like the rising sun in the near future. After half the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the arrangements in the Magnolia Palace had been completed. The 500 children were divided into 10 groups and sat there obediently. The 30 or so disciples that had been selected by Yun Songyu, and the 10 or so disciples that had been sent over from other places were gathered together and waiting respectfully. Xiao Hua had already seen that except for Yue Hua, Nua Yeqing, Lu Qingyu and the other disciples of Yulan Hall whom he had met once were all among the 50 disciples. Obviously, Lu Hanhuan had seen through Xiao Hua's nostalgia. Xiao Hua still walked to the center of Yulan Hall. Before he could speak, the 50 disciples hurriedly bowed and saluted. Senior, thank you for your guidance. Yes. Xiao Hua nodded and said, the so-called spiritual root is not something that can be involved in Taoism cultivation. You all only need to know. Subsequently, Xiao Hua explained the secret technique to distinguish spiritual roots in detail, and according to the situation of each disciple, he explained in detail how to use it. This secret technique to distinguish spiritual roots was difficult to grasp even for Fortune Gate disciples, let alone Xianxia sect disciples. Even people as strong as Xia Feng and Yun Songyu seemed to have grasped the secret technique, but if they were to use it on the children in front of them, they felt that they had no idea where to start. However, Xiao Hua was not in a hurry. Taoism cultivators practiced cultivation techniques from a young age. This secret technique was also a cultivation technique, but there were some soul techniques in it that made these cultivators feel at a loss. Once they were proficient, they would naturally be able to use it. Furthermore, Xiao Hua's target was not the disciples of the Qianxia sect. After he explained the secret technique and gave them some pointers, he began to carefully investigate the 500 children left behind in the Magnolia Hall waiting to be selected. Xiao Hua's attentiveness made Lu Hanhuan very surprised. Not only did Xiao Hua examine the children's meridians, hearts, lungs, muscles, etc., he also examined the children's Naiwan Palace, Middle Dantian, and Lower Dantian. He even asked with interest about the children's background, living habits, and other things that had nothing to do with cultivation. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 4863. While Xiao Hua was inspecting the disciples in the hall, he found that someone from the Qianxia school was already able to use the secret technique. However, this person surprised Xiao Hua. This disciple was not a nascent soul cultivator like Xiafeng, nor was it a golden core cultivator like Hongfeng. It was Nua Yeqing, a foundation establishment cultivator. Xiao Hua was pleasantly surprised. He let Nua Yeqing try it out on a few children who were waiting to be selected. Although there were some mistakes at the beginning, after Xiao Hua pointed out a few more tricks, Nua Yeqing was already able to successfully select the children with spirit roots. Moreover, her judgment of the spirit roots was also correct. Good. Xiao Hua patted Nua Yeqing's shoulder and smiled. You really do have some fate with this old man. I'll leave the task of teaching Palace Master Xia and Vice Palace Master Yun to you. Xia Feng and Yun Songyu had very awkward expressions. Xiao Hua couldn't help but smile. He naturally wouldn't let a nascent soul cultivator lose face. While he had Nua Yeqing report to Lu Qingyu in detail, he called Lu Hanhuan, Xia Feng, Yun Songyu and the others in front of a child with an earth-type spiritual root that Nua Yeqing had just selected. He carefully discussed with them how to refine the magic tool. After Lu Hanhuan and the others memorized the magic tool's formation and the secret technique, Lu Qingyu and the others gradually understood the secret technique. One by one, they gradually began to enter the hall. Xiao Hua didn't neglect them. He had each of them be responsible for the test of 10 children waiting to be selected. As for Lu Hanhuan and the others, they went to refine the magic tool. 10 children, it wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a small number either. Under Xiao Hua's occasional pointers, Lu Qingyu and the others repeatedly practiced. When night came, most of the 50 Chanhe school disciples were able to control the secret technique skillfully. They were able to select the children with spiritual roots that they were responsible for. Seeing that everyone was in high spirits, Xiao Hua reminded them, "Let's stop here for today. The children are tired. Let them go back and rest." After saying that, Xiao Hua no longer paid attention to the Yulan Hall disciples and walked out of the hall. All the disciples didn't dare to neglect Xiao Hua and respectfully sent him off. When Xiao Hua returned to the flowing palace, he closed his eyes and rested for a moment. Then, a smile appeared on his face. He sent out his spiritual sense and carefully read the jade strip that Lu Hanhuan took out yesterday. There weren't many things recorded in the Yilin continent in this jade slip. Instead, there were many records of the Chanhe sect's establishment and development plans, as well as the deeds of the previous sect masters and famous disciples. Xiao Hua didn't have any impatience and patiently looked through it. In the following 10 days, Xiao Hua guided the Chanhe sect disciples in the Yulan Hall to familiarize themselves with the selection Dharma art. He also guided Lu Hanhuan, Xia Feng, and the others in refining the selection Dharma artifact. At the same time, he asked Lu Hanhuan to take out the Chanhe sect's cultivation technique and modify it bit by bit according to his understanding of the laws of heaven and earth. When night fell, Xiao Hua returned to the flowing hall and checked the manuals of the Chanhe sect. From time to time, he would call Lu Hanhuan over to ask. It was during these fulfilling days that Yu Zhuahong returned from the auction. There was no need for Zhuahong to report too much. Xiao Hua looked at the excitement in Lu Hanhuan's eyes and knew that the Chanhe sect had gained a lot from this auction. Yu Zhuahong roughly explained the situation of the auction and took out the crystals, jade slips, and other items that he had obtained and placed them in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua casually took the jade slip and checked it with his divine sense. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your trouble, Elder Yu." Yu Zhuahong had long known about Xiao Hua's actions. Now, he was even more respectful. He bowed and said, "Compared to what Senior has done for my Chanhe sect, what Junior has done is really insignificant. Moreover, this auction only involved cultivators from the Fengyan nation and a few nearby nations. The owner of the auction didn't seem to be present. Junior didn't help Senior find out about the Defeat You Immortal Alliance. I've really disappointed Senior." It's fine. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "If you can't do it this time, there will be a next time. This disciple selection secret technique is so popular. If the Chanhe sect doesn't take advantage of this opportunity to make a big profit, you've really let this old man down." Yes. Yu Zhuahong's face also flushed red. In his memory, the Chanhe sect hadn't been so popular in the auction for a long time. "Senior," Lu Hanhuan, who was at the side, said with some surprise. Junior boldly asks, "Where exactly is the Defeat You Immortal Alliance that you're looking for in the Yilin continent?" In Junior's impression, my Yilin continent seems to have 2 cultivation alliances, the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance. These 2 alliances are formed by the sects and families of dozens of nations. The Fengyan nation should belong to the Dao Alliance in the northeast. When Junior was still a low-level cultivator, the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance had some disputes and wars. Even within the alliance, there were often fights. However, due to the great change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, these fights have become fewer and fewer, not to mention large-scale battles. Hee. Xiao Hua put down the jade slip in his hand and said with a smile, "This old man doesn't know where the Defeat You Immortal Alliance is, but according to this old man's speculation, the Tsang Immortal Alliance should be in the east of the Yilin continent, not far from the Wu Meng mountain range. As for the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, this old man has already seen them from your Chanhe sect's records. However, this old man is a little puzzled. When this old man asked about the Defeat You Immortal Alliance, why didn't you mention the Dao Alliance?" Lu Hanhuan's face was a little embarrassed as he said in a low voice, "I won't hide it from Senior. In the early years of the Fengyan nation, there were many sects like my Chanhe sect. My Fengyan nation belongs to the Dao Alliance in name, but only the Fallen Immortal sect, Chongwei sect, Supa Mountain, and Li Yen sect can appear in the Dao Alliance. My Xianxia sect seems to have participated in the war between the Tao Alliance and the Immortal Alliance once 100,000 years ago, but never again. If Senior didn't mention the Immortal Alliance, Junior would have almost forgotten about these two Tao Alliance. That's not all, Xiaohua said with a smile. Looking at the records in your sect, the Tao Alliance has 81 Immortal Alliances, hundreds and thousands of countries, and 120 cultivation families. The Fengyan nation is also the country closest to the northeast of the Yilin continent. Even the fallen Immortal sect doesn't seem to be in the top 100 of the Tao Alliance, right? Hee 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 hee. Lu Hanhuan laughed and said with an indifferent look, "So, it's normal for Junior to not remember the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance. Perhaps the sect leader of the fallen Immortal sect has already forgotten about the Tao Alliance." No. Xiaohua shook his head slightly and said, "You're wrong." Although the change in the heaven and earth spiritual qi had changed the development of the Tao sects, and regardless of whether it was the Tao Alliance or the Heaven Alliance, they were both declining rapidly. However, this was also an era where new forces were emerging. Whoever could quickly grasp a new cultivation method, or a new method of selecting disciples, would be able to lead the Yilin continent. Moreover, don't worry, in the Yilin continent that you can't see, no matter whether it's between the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, or within the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, the same battles and killings still exist. Hiss. Hearing this, Lu Hanhuan couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, as if he had understood something. His face instantly turned pale, but he still argued. But the cultivation technique of the Heaven Alliance seems to be different from that of the Tao Alliance. Different? Xiaohua was slightly stunned, but he instantly understood. He thought to himself, the Tao Alliance cultivates the nascent soul, and the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance are opposing each other. If I'm not wrong, they're probably cultivating the primordial soul. It's a pity that the Xianxia sect is too small, and there are no records of this at all. Senior. Yu Zhuahong also thought of something, and his face turned pale as well. He looked around naturally and said in shock, "You mean that the Xianxia sect is now? The Xianxia sect is now in a place where a huge opportunity lies." Xiaohua pinched his chin and answered with narrowed eyes. If sect leader Lu can grasp this opportunity, the Xianxia sect in the future will not be the Xianxia sect now. I believe that even the fallen Immortal sect will have to look up to the Xianxia sect in the future. However, if sect leader Lu can't grasp this opportunity, the Xianxia sect will be in extreme danger. At this moment, Lu Hanhuan already had no mood to listen to what Xiaohua was saying. His previous passion was as if it had been doused by ice water, and it was chilling to the core. He already knew how dangerous the situation was for him and the Xianxia sect. It was true that the modified cultivation method was good, but a man's wealth was his own ruin. If the Xianxia sect had this beautiful jade, it would be known by other sects sooner or later. Who knows, a huge disaster might befall them one day. At this point, Xiaohua said embarrassedly, "This is also my fault. I just came out of seclusion, and I don't know much about the situation in the Yilin continent. It was only these few days that I found out about the current situation in the Yilin continent after reading the ancient books." Yu Zhuahong pondered for a moment, and the paleness on his face faded slightly. He looked at Lu Hanhuan and said, "Sect leader, what Senior said makes sense. Opportunities will never come for no reason. If there is no huge disaster, how can there be a huge opportunity? Previously, when I entered the auction, I was also a little afraid. However, when I was bidding for the secret technique, I understood. What Senior said earlier is really the way to solve this disaster. The Xianxia sect should make the secret technique and cultivation method public as soon as possible, and even join forces with the famous sects under the Taoist Union. This is the way for the Xianxia sect to protect ourselves. Yes, this is a serious matter. I need to think carefully." Lu Hanhuan understood this. He thought for a while and nodded. "Follow me to the Ming Xen Hall first, and discuss with Elder Pang. After Elder Gao returns, we will make a decision." "Oh, Elder Gao hasn't returned yet?" Yu Zhuahong asked curiously. Although the Xianxia sect doesn't have a transportation array directly to the fallen Immortal sect, it shouldn't take so long. Sigh. Lu Hanhuan sighed. Elder Gao is an elder in the Xianxia sect, but in the fallen Immortal sect, she is just an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. How can she casually meet the sect leader of the fallen Immortal sect? The array flag of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array can't be revealed casually. I'm afraid Elder Gao won't be back soon. But Yu Zhuahong wanted to say something, but when he saw Xiao Hua beside him, he swallowed his words. Then he took out a jade slip from his chest and handed it to Xiao Hua respectfully. Senior, although I didn't find out any information about the fallen immortal sect, I heard from a few cultivators that the transportation route from the Fengyan Kingdom to the Jia Kingdom, which is the border of the Taoist Union. The Wuming Mountain Range is in the east of the Yilin continent. If you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range, you have to at least reach the Jia Kingdom first. In addition, I also bought the topographic map of the Yilin continent and the power distribution of some of the cultivation sects in the Heaven Alliance. Senior, please take your time to check. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 4864. Very good. Xiao Hua took the jade scroll with a smile and looked at the crystals in front of him. He asked Lu Hanhuan, Sect Master Lu, do you have any extra storage bracelets? Yes. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly took out a storage bracelet and handed it to Xiao Hua respectfully. Junior storage bracelet's quality is not particularly good. It doesn't matter. Xiao Hua took it with a smile and said, I'm just using it temporarily. If the quality is good, it would be a waste. Seeing Xiao Hua put the jade scroll into the storage bracelet, Lu Hanhuan and Yu Zhuahong looked at each other and prepared to leave. Xiao Hua waved his hand and gave most of the crystals to Lu Hanhuan. Sect Master Lu, I don't need so many crystals. I'll give these to your Jianghu sect. Lu Hanhuan still wanted to decline, but at this moment with a swoosh, a fist-sized cyan crane-like object flew in from outside the hall. It drew a faint arc and landed in front of Lu Hanhuan's eyes. Lu Hanhuan was stunned and looked at Xiao Hua and Yu Zhuahong. He raised his hand and pointed at the green crane's forehead. Pang! The green crane exploded and Gao Cheng's voice came from inside. Reporting to Sect Master, I've brought back the fallen immortal sect disciples. Sect Master, please send the disciples to welcome them. Haha, Elder Gao has finally returned. Lu Hanhuan laughed loudly, looking as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Then, Lu Hanhuan did not say anything else and kept the crystals. He said respectfully, Senior, please cultivate here. I'll go welcome the fallen immortal sect disciples. Go. Xiao Hua waved his hand and Lu Hanhuan hurriedly left with Yu Zhuahong. Xiao Hua sat down and used his divine perception to check the jade scroll that Yu Zhuahong brought back. He smiled and thought to himself, that's right, this Yilin continent is the other side of the Dawn Rain continent. The terrain of this Yilin continent is almost the same as what Feng Wu got from the Great Sage Hall. It's just that the corner of the Dawn Rain continent is missing. Moreover, the Yilin continent has the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, which coincides with the name of the Heavenly Dao Realm. This Yilin continent must be the Heavenly Dao Realm that the Swift Cherry Supreme Sage mentioned. What's special is that the Dao sects in Yilin continent are indeed very prosperous. It's hard for the Dawn Rain continent to reach it. There was actually a transmission channel from the remote Fengyan Kingdom to the so-called Jia Kingdom. Although he did not know how to get to Wuming Mountain from Jia Kingdom, there should be other teleportation channels in the territory of the Heavenly Alliance, right? As long as I use the crystal stones, I can easily reach the Wumeng Mountain range. Looks like the trip to the Yilin continent will be much smoother than the 10,000 Demon Realm. A trace of regret appeared in Xiao Hua's heart when he thought of success. He regretted pushing the Jianghu sect into the limelight. He also regretted giving the Jianghu sect the secret technique to select disciples before he recovered his divine ability. What about the modified cultivation method? Should we give it to them? Xiao Hua secretly asked himself. After these days of inspection and comprehension, Xiao Hua already had some knowledge of the cultivation methods below the nascent soul stage. He could record them in a jade slip and hand them over to the Jianghu sect at any time. However, whether these cultivation methods were a blessing or a curse to Lu Hanhuan was not something Xiao Hua could grasp. Let's see Lu Hanhuan's choice. Xiao Hua quickly made a decision. If he is ambitious, there is no harm in giving these cultivation methods to him. But if he wants to stay in the Fengyan Kingdom, these cultivation methods, there is no need to give them to him. Soon after, Xiao Hua waved his hand. He didn't need to use any technique at all. The candle-like magic tool that had stopped on one of the corona rose up and landed on the shadow of the other corona's needle. Shwa! When another rainbow appeared, Xiaohua casually took out a jade slip from inside and carefully looked at it. After a long time, Xiaohua suddenly raised his eyebrows and looked outside the hall. There was a smile on his face and he said loudly, "Let him in." In a moment, Nua Yeqing quickly walked in from outside the hall and bowed. "Junior greets Senior Zhang. Please forgive me for disturbing Senior's meditation." "Hee, get up." Xiaohua floated up and waved his hand. "Yeqing, do you have something urgent? Why did you come here at this time?" Nua Yeqing bit her lips and looked at Xiaohua. "Senior Junior wants to ask Senior a question. After Senior answers, Junior will tell Senior in detail." Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "Say it, what do you want to ask?" "Senior." Nua Yeqing looked around and asked in a low voice, "Can Sect Master hear Junior's words?" "He doesn't dare," Xiaohua said with a smile. "You can ask." "It's like this." Nua Yeqing thought for a moment and said, "Junior heard Senior say that you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range. Do you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range? Or do you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range?" "Oh." Xiaohua was dumbfounded. He originally thought that Nua Yeqing had received instructions from Lu Qingyu or Hong Feng, and had come to look for him in search of a modified cultivation method. He never thought that he would actually ask about the Wuming Mountain Range. Xiaohua didn't hide it and answered, "I want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range. However, it's fine if you don't know why I want to go there." "Then, Senior, can you take Junior with you?" Nua Yeqing's face was filled with joy, and she hurriedly begged with a kind of eagerness in her eyes. "You want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range?" Xiaohua was even more puzzled and asked, "Why do you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range? Besides, if you want to go, you can go any time. Why do you want to go with me?" Junior has a reason to go to the Wuming Mountain Range. But Junior wants to keep it a secret for now. Of course, Senior will have to keep it a secret for me. Nua Yeqing knew that Xiaohua liked to be straightforward, so she simply told him everything. "When we get to the Wuming Mountain Range, Junior will tell Senior everything. Junior has told Master about this before, but Master said that the distance between the Wuming Mountain Range and the Xingyun Mountain Range is more than 1,000,000 miles. It's too dangerous, and even he doesn't have the confidence to reach the Wuming Mountain Range, so he doesn't agree with Junior going. Hee, now that you know that I'm going, you want to go with me?" Xiaohua asked with a smile. Nua Yeqing lowered her head in embarrassment and nodded slightly. "Was it your idea, or was it Lu Qingyu's idea?" Xiaohua asked with interest. Nua Yeqing hurriedly raised her head and said, "This has nothing to do with Master. He's comprehending the secret skill that Senior gave him. You're going to the Wuming Mountain Range with me, so how are you going to come back?" Xiaohua asked meaningfully. "Or, you don't plan to come back at all?" This. Nua Yeqing looked a little flustered. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Senior, I'll tell you everything before we get to the Wuming Mountain Range. At this time, I hope Senior won't force me." Yes, this old man understands. Xiaohua didn't understand why Nua Yeqing wanted to go to the Wuming Mountain Range, but he still wanted to come. He replied, "I can't answer you now. Can you let me think about it first?" "Yes, I'm sorry for disturbing Senior. If Senior finds it difficult, just pretend that I didn't say anything." Nua Yeqing hurriedly bowed and said, "I'll take my leave." Seeing Nua Yeqing hastily turn around and leave, Xiaohua bitterly smiled and shook his head. He then picked up the jade slip. However, before Xiaohua could look at it for half an hour, boom boom boom. Outside the flowing time hall, a series of faint rumbling sounds resounded. Soon after, the light and shadow within the hall dimmed. The world spirit chi in the vicinity was like a whirlwind blowing towards the outside of the hall. After that, Xiaohua felt the entire hall begin to slightly tremble and sway. What's going on? Xiaohua was surprised. Could it be that the fallen Immortal sect disciples are dissatisfied with the Chanhe sect and have started to attack them? Thinking of this, Xiaohua got up and walked out of the passage hall slowly. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly flew out of the passage hall. He didn't dare to hesitate and ordered Yu Zhuaheng, "Elder Yu, quickly send out my order." Send out the guest welcoming array to welcome the fallen immortal sect disciples. Yes, sect master. After receiving the order, Yu Zhuahong hurriedly flew away. In less than half a cup of tea's time, boom boom. Several rays of light appeared from Xingyun Ridge and rushed into the night sky, illuminating the area as bright as day. At the same time, groups of disciples in bright clothes flew out of the hall and lined up in a neat formation. They stood in front of the mountain gate of the Xianxia sect. There were thousands of disciples standing in mid-air. There were also some graceful female disciples holding pipa or flute in their hands. Following an old woman's hand gesture, the sound of strings and bamboo and the sound of zither started to sound slowly. Lu Hanhuan had already changed his clothes. He brought Yu Zhuahong and Pang Luxing out of the mountain gate and stood respectfully in mid-air. In the time it took to eat a meal, in the night sky, a light boat flew over. This flying boat was only a few feet long. There were many runes engraved on the boat. A layer of faint red light shone out from these runes, illuminating the nearby night sky. In the faint red light, there was a sign floating in front of the flying boat that looked like a mountain range. It was very eye-catching. A low and almost inaudible rumbling sound came from this sign. Layers of heaven and earth spirit energy seeped out from the void and fell into this sign. Inside the flying boat, there were more than 10 cultivators in embroidered clothes. These cultivators all had dignified appearances and a heroic spirit. They emitted a faint fluctuation around their bodies. When this fluctuation landed on the flying boat, the faint red color of the flying boat became even brighter. Lu Hanhuan saw the extremely eye-catching mountain range sign in the night sky and a smile appeared on his face. He urged his body forward to welcome it. Yu Zhuahong and Pang Luxing didn't dare to be negligent and followed carefully. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4865. On the flying boat, Elder Gao Cheng was standing in front of the cultivators. Seeing the Xianxia sect's disciples lined up to welcome them, Gao Cheng smiled and turned to the cultivator with a face like a full moon. Taoist Jia, this is the mountain gate of our Xianxia sect. The one flying in front is our sect leader Lu Hanhuan. The woman behind him is Elder Yu Zhuahong and the other is Elder Pang Luxing. Before Taoist Jia could speak, a slightly short cultivator behind him snorted coldly and said, "Tisese, Gao Cheng, your sect leader is actually a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. This is truly beyond my expectations. In that case, any one of us brothers can establish a sect in the vicinity of Nebula Ridge?" "Ha ha ha, not at all." Gao Cheng laughed. "If Taoist Fan establishes a sect near Xingyun Ridge, how can our Xianxia sect compete with the fallen Immortal sect? Our Xianxia sect is willing to give Xingyun Ridge to Taoist Fan." "Ha ha." Taoist Fan seemed to be very happy. He laughed loudly and said, "If my sect leader knew that I, Fan, had chased away the Xianxia sect, who had helped the fallen Immortal sect, wouldn't he skin me alive? Forget it, this is not a good deal." "Ha ha, junior brother Fan." Senior brother Zhe laughed. "Don't underestimate the Xianxia sect. It has been established for almost 100,000 years. Any sect that can be established for so long in our Fengyan country must have its unique points. Lu Hanhuan may be in the late-stage nascent soul stage, but that is because he is burdened by the sect and cannot concentrate on cultivation. Otherwise, he will definitely surpass us and reach the spirit-severing stage." Senior brother Zhe had just finished speaking when someone behind junior brother Fan laughed. "Reach the spirit-severing stage? That depends on whether he can pass the spirit-severing stage lightning tribulation. I have reached the mid-stage nascent soul stage, but I still don't have any confidence that I can pass the lightning tribulation." There was silence on the flying boat. Senior brother Zhe smiled and was about to speak when Lu Hanhuan's voice was heard. "Are you a disciple of the fallen Immortal sect? I am Lu Hanhuan. I am here to welcome you all." "Ahem, junior brothers. Sect Master Lu of the Xianxia sect has personally come to welcome you. Everyone, pull yourselves together. Don't embarrass the fallen Immortal sect." Senior martial brother Zhe coughed twice. As a reminder, he tidied up his clothes and stepped out of the flying boat. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, "I'm Zhe Jun from the falling Immortal sect. Greetings, sect leader Lu." After the banished ruler flew out of the flying boat, Gao Qing smiled and also flew up from the flying boat. He raised his left hand and said respectfully, "Fellow Taoists, please." Haha, fellow Taoist Gao, please. Smiles returned to the faces of the fallen Immortal sect's disciples. They tidied their clothes and flew out from the flying boat. The last disciple who flew out waved his sleeve and a blurry halo spun out from his hand and covered the flying boat. The disciple let out a clear chuckle and raised his hand. The flying boat instantly shrank and fell into his sleeve. "I'm Fan Di. Greetings, Sect Leader Lu. I am Lu Pingxi. Greetings, Sect Leader Lu." After the banished ruler, the group of fallen Immortal sect's disciples came over to greet him politely. They showed the demeanor of a disciple from a big cultivation sect. Lu Hanhuan was overjoyed. Yu Zhuahong and Pang Lusheng, who were behind him, also came over to greet him. They exchanged some polite words. Then, the Xianxia sect's disciples rushed into the mountain gate. However, just as they flew to the front of Mingxin Hall, a loud roar was heard within 10,000 miles of Xingyun Ridge. Rays of light shot up into the sky and covered the surrounding sky. Gusts of wild wind rushed out from these rays of light and rushed towards Xingyun Ridge like raging waves. Wherever the wild wind passed, the void was torn apart. Ear-piercing cries and howls were heard and the quiet night sky was torn apart. The darkness before dawn was even more dazzling now. What's going on? The fallen Immortal sect's disciples were stunned. They looked around in confusion and their gazes landed on Lu Hanhuan. It was a pity that before Lu Hanhuan could speak, another earth-shaking roar of beasts was heard from the east and west. Roar! Tens of thousands of ferocious beasts were distorted and ferocious in the light. They flew and roared as they flew over. Caw-caw! The beasts' roars did not land. Instead, they attracted birds' cries from the north and south. Similarly, tens of thousands of birds spread out hundreds of wings and flew over. The sky was filled with feathers that flashed with a strange light and shadow. However, this light and shadow could not cover up the bleakness and darkness of the night sky. Flying Shadow Sect. This is the Flying Shadow Sect. The fallen Immortal sect's disciple Fan Di suddenly came to his senses and exclaimed, "Sect Leader Lu, why did the Flying Shadow Sect suddenly besiege your Xianxia sect? Is there any conflict between your Xianxia sect and the Flying Shadow Sect?" The banished ruler was flustered at first. However, he had already calmed down. He looked at Lu Hanhuan and said, "Sect Leader Lu, what's going on? We are still waiting for Sect Leader Lu's explanation." Lu Hanhuan frowned and looked at Gao Cheng. Gao Cheng's mouth was bitter. He hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands, saying, "Taoist friend banished, this is the difficulty that I mentioned when I gave you the array flag." "What? This is the difficulty that you mentioned?" Lu Pingxi pointed at the flickering shadows on the left and shouted, "You're not kidding me, are you? The fight between your Xianxia sect and the Flying Shadow sect is actually a difficulty that you want us to help you with?" "That's right," Gao Cheng hurriedly explained. "My Xianxia sect and the Flying Shadow sect have a feud that is difficult to resolve. The Flying Shadow sect wants to force my Xianxia sect to leave Xingyun Ridge. Therefore, my sect leader wants the fallen Immortal sect to mediate and end this feud. This is very difficult for my Xianxia sect. However, in the eyes of the fallen Immortal sect, it is very simple." But Taoist friend Gao should explain clearly," the banished ruler said unhappily. "Although there is nothing that the fallen Immortal sect cannot do in the Fengyan kingdom, this is a dispute between the two sections. But fellow Taoist, you should have told us about the conflict between the sects in advance." Gao Cheng felt wronged and said, "Taoist friend banished ruler, it is not that I don't want to say it. However, as soon as I said it, you were attracted by the banner of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation and ignored me. I think you didn't hear what I said clearly, right? Forget it, it is useless to talk about this now." The banished ruler looked at the night sky and saw the disciples of the Flying Shadow sect standing on both the flying beasts and the demonic beasts. He smiled bitterly and said to Lu Hanhuan, "Sect Leader Lu, let's activate the sect protection array first. When the sect leader of the Flying Shadow sect comes, I will go and take a look at the situation." Okay. Lu Hanhuan had been ready for a long time. When he heard the banished ruler's words, he hurriedly waved his hand. Gee! A sharp sound rose into the sky. A halo the size of a fist extended into the sky. When it stopped with a loud bang, a petal that was hundreds of feet in size bloomed from the halo. When the petal opened, 8 rays of light of different colors appeared at the tips of the 8 petals. These rays of light formed an arc and slid down in the night sky. Where the rays of light landed, ripples appeared. When the rays of light landed around the nebula ridge, boom, boom, boom. The entire nebula ridge shook. Faint clouds surged out from the ground. Countless light curtains moved against the sky. In a moment, an 8-colored sect protection array was activated. As for the disciples of the Xianxia sect, when Lu Hanhuan waved his hand, they had already activated their figures and divided into 64 teams. Each team had 64 disciples. These teams flew to different parts of the sect protection array. From afar, the 8 teams formed a star formation. The entire sect protection array was like 8 shining stars. The banished ruler was slightly stunned. He said with surprise, "Sect leader Lu, is this the 4 stars formation?" Taoist friend banished. You are indeed from a famous sect. This is the 4 stars formation that has been passed down for generations in the Xianxia sect. Amazing! The banished ruler nodded and said, I didn't expect to see the 4 stars formation in such a remote place. No wonder the Xianxia sect has been standing for so long. I admire you. I don't dare. I've embarrassed myself in front of you. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly smiled and said, the Xianxia sect is just a small sect. How can it be compared to the fallen Immortal sect? Although the sect protection array has been set up, I don't have the confidence to resist the attack of the Flying Shadow sect. We have to rely on the fallen Immortal sect. Ha ha ha, it's okay, it's okay. Before the banished ruler could reply, Fan Di laughed and said, if we didn't come tonight, we wouldn't have said anything. But since we are here, and the fallen Immortal sect has benefited from the Xianxia sect, how can we let the Xianxia sect suffer under the Flying Shadow sect? Lu Pingxi and the others stood in the distance and frowned as they looked beyond the clouds. The beasts and birds of the Flying Shadow sect covered the sky and covered the earth. They were whispering to each other through voice transmission. Hearing Fan Di's words, Lu Hanhuan hurriedly said, Junior brother Fan, you can't say too much. Unfortunately, before Lu Pingxi could finish, the banished ruler sneered and said, it's just a small sect. Why do you need to be arrogant? We have more than 10 nascent soul stage cultivators. Can't we take down the Flying Shadow sect? Humph. Fan Di snorted and said, that's right. If we don't drive the Flying Shadow sect away today, how can we return to the fallen Immortal sect? Buzz buzz buzz. As Fan Di was speaking, another low rumbling sound came from the night sky. Between the birds and the beasts, tens of thousands of black dots appeared. These black dots were the size of a fist, and they were completely black. In the dark night, they were actually glowing. At the edges of the glowing dots, there was a pair of thin transparent wings flashing rapidly. The rumbling sound came from this flapping sound. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and Chapter 4866. Damn it! Are these spirits swallowing bugs? Banished Lord's face changed slightly, and he said in a low voice. Fan Di's face also darkened. She bit her lips and didn't say anything. After the spirit swallowing bugs flew out, the whole world was immersed in an inexplicable darkness. Even though the Xianxia sect's mountain guarding formation was surging with 8-colored brilliance, and even though there were strange lights around the birds and beasts, they couldn't stop the desolation in the darkness. The darkness not only blocked people's eyes, but also soaked people's hearts. The darkness and desolation swept across the earth and the sky. In just a few breaths, coo coo coo, a rooster's crowing came from nowhere. The sound was very low and weak, but it was like a sharp sword piercing into the darkness. In the distance, in the east, the first light of dawn had also appeared. The darkness that had soaked people's hearts suddenly disappeared. The helplessness in the darkness suddenly turned into a bud of hope, and it bloomed instantly with the dawn in the sky. Lu Hanhuan's hope might not have bloomed, but he looked at the sunlight in the distance, and then his eyes fell on the handsome cultivators of the fallen Immortal sect. His hope had fallen on the shoulders of these arrogant cultivators. However, there was a trace of worry in the eyes of these arrogant cultivators. This was because within 1,000 miles of the nebula ridge, there were already flying beasts everywhere. These flying beasts were all huge in size, and on the back of each flying beast, there were cultivators dressed in strange clothes. These cultivators' faces, arms, and necks were engraved with strange patterns. The patterns were either beast heads, skulls, flowers, or stars and moons. These cultivators were a size larger than ordinary cultivators, and their muscles were as tough as mountain rocks on their muscular bodies. These cultivators drove the birds and beasts to surround the nebula ridge, but they didn't rush to attack. The spirit-swallowing bugs, which were as black as before, were now shining brightly, like flashing black fog, covering the sky. As the morning sun shone light from the horizon, woo, 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 a series of rhythmic noises sounded again, and thousands of cultivators with various magic weapons formed a team and flew over with the wind. Ha ha ha. Loud and clear laughter sounded like a horn. Roar. In the laughter, a deafening roar sounded. In the orange-red sunlight, a red boa dragon, which was thousands of feet long, flew out of the team. A man held a long halberd in his hand, and he stood on the boa dragon, facing the sunlight. The boa dragon rushed to the nebula ridge in the sky, and the birds, beasts, and spirit-swallowing bugs all made way. When the boa dragon circled half a circle in the sky above the nebula ridge, it suddenly raised its head. Roar! With a loud roar, a fire pillar, which was dozens of feet long, shot out from the boa dragon's mouth, and hit the protective array of the Xianxia sect. Buzz! The protective array of the Xianxia sect shook rapidly. Where the fire pillar landed, light splashed in all directions, and the clouds were broken. Dozens of disciples of the Xianxia sect, who were responsible for defending this area, were knocked down from the sky by the counterforce. The disciples of the other teams hurriedly activated their magic incantations, and their Dharma powers surged, barely protecting the protective array. Seeing that the attack didn't work, the boa dragon roared again. In the wind and clouds, the boa dragon's ferocious head was tightly attached to the protective array. Ah! A timid disciple of the Xianxia sect was guarding the array. Seeing the terrifying boa head, he screamed and flew back hundreds of feet. Damn it! Lu Hanhuan cursed in a low voice. Before he could speak, a tall cultivator, who was almost naked, on the boa dragon, looked up to the sky and laughed. The cultivator's body, which was covered with animal stripes, flashed a strange brilliance under the sunlight, and a dragon-shaped light shadow loomed in the brilliance. The cultivator's head was 3 times thicker than that of ordinary cultivators, and a few pieces of golden dragon scales were embedded around his cheeks. The cultivator's eyebrows were thick, and his cheekbones were bulging. Lines of runes, which looked like dragon stripes, were engraved around his cheekbones, connecting his eyes, nose, and ears together. After laughing, the cultivator lowered his head, opened his bloody mouth and roared like thunder. Lu Hanhuan, I'm coming! You should wash your ass and hand over the nebula ridge. If you know what's good for you, I'll let you and your disciples leave. If you don't know what's good for you, then don't blame me for being ruthless. All of my children are starving. Roar! As the cultivator's voice fell, thousands of ferocious birds and beasts roared, and waves of murderous aura mixed with bloody light rushed towards the nebula ridge. Although the murderous aura couldn't break the protective array, it had imperceptibly entered the hearts of the Xianxia sect disciples. Not only Nua Yecheng, but even Lu Qingyu's face was filled with fear. Goat horn Shi Wu. Lu Hanhuan moved his body and flew to the protective array in the sky, facing the boa head. He said, My Xianxia sect doesn't have any deep hatred with your flying shadow sect. It's just a dispute over some crystals, and you've sent your entire sect to approach the nebula ridge, wanting to exterminate my Xianxia sect. You still think of yourself as a sect of the Fengyan kingdom? Damn it! The cultivator named Goat Horn Shi Wu cursed. Your Xianxia sect disciple injured my flying shadow sect disciple and didn't even apologize to my flying shadow sect. As the sect master of the flying shadow sect, how can I swallow this insult and not stand up for him? You! Lu Hanhuan was so angry that his body trembled. He raised his hand and pointed at Goat Horn Shi Wu, saying, You're really biting back. It's obvious that your flying shadow sect disciple bullied others and forced my Xianxia sect disciple to make a deal. My Xianxia sect disciple was forced to fight back. Humph. Before Lu Hanhuan could finish, Fan Di of the fallen Immortal sect snorted coldly and said, If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Sect Master Lu is too slow. He wants to exterminate your Xianxia sect, and you know his intentions. Why are you wasting time with him? Release the protective array and let us kill him. Okay, I'll leave it to you. Lu Hanhuan bit his lips and bowed, saying, "The lives of tens of thousands of my Xianxia sect disciples are in your hands." Banished monarch laughed. "Sect Master Lu, don't worry. Not to mention that your Xianxia sect found the array flag left behind by our ancestor for my fallen immortal sect. My fallen immortal sect can't just ignore the Flying Shadow sect's domineering attitude. If the Flying Shadow sect succeeds in front of us, how can my fallen immortal sect still be in charge of the Fengyan kingdom?" Yes, the fallen immortal sect is really the backbone of my Fengyan kingdom. You are also the messengers of justice. Lu Hanhuan said, "There are so many cultivation sects and families in my Fengyan kingdom. If the fallen immortal sect didn't maintain order, I'm afraid it would have been chaotic long ago." Lu Hanhuan said some flattering words, and Fan Di was already a little impatient. He urged his body to rush to the front of the big array. If he didn't have scruples about breaking the big array, he was afraid that he would have already flown out to teach the arrogant goat-horned Shiwu a lesson. Sect Master Lu, banished monarch reminded him. He didn't know how many times he had heard Lu Hanhuan's flattery in his life. Fan Di was still impatient, but he was already numb. Lu Hanhuan didn't dare to be negligent. Although he muttered in his heart, he still raised his hand and grabbed. In the sky, among the petals that were still flashing with 8-colored brilliance, a ball of light fell with a spell. Lu Hanhuan held it in his hand. With a shake of the wind, it turned into a 1-foot array flag. Lu Hanhuan activated his Dharma power. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He waved it continuously, and several strong winds fell into the protective array. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the clouds, more than 10 light circles of 1 foot in size fell, covering the disciples of the fallen immortal sect. "Everyone, please," Lu Hanhuan said respectfully. He waved the array flag again. The array flag turned into more than 10 streamers and fell into the light circles. The light circles brought the disciples of the fallen immortal sect out of Xingyun Ridge. Roar! Just as the disciples of the fallen immortal sect flew out, the python dragon under the goat-horned Shihu's feet roared. The python dragon raised its head high and was ready to pounce on Lu Pingxi, who was closest to it. "Damned evil creature!" Lu Pingxi roared angrily and waved his hand. A jasper pearl the size of a wicker basket appeared out of thin air. As Lu Pingxi spat out a mouthful of true qi on it, roar! As the jasper pearl vibrated, a similar roar came from within the pearl. Along with this sound, a dark green flood dragon, whose body was smaller than the python dragon's, rushed out from the misty brilliance. Although its ferocious aura was 3 times more powerful than the python dragon's, it rushed out from the misty brilliance. As soon as the flood dragon appeared, a chill immediately appeared in the air nearby, and ice shards began to fall from the sky with a thusua sound. Seeing how powerful the green python dragon was, the red python dragon shrunk its body slightly. Then its eyes turned red. It hissed and was ready to pounce. The goat-horned Shi, who was a little surprised. It hurriedly tapped the python dragon with its feet and stopped the python dragon's attack. It shouted, "You! Who are you? How dare you stop me from killing Lu Hanhuan?" Then the goat-horned Shi who looked around again. Except for Lu Pingxi, the other disciples of the fallen celestial sect, such as Fan Di, also took out their magic treasures. Although they did not use their magic treasures, they stood around the banished king in picturesque disorder, forming a simple magic array. Although there were only a dozen of them and they had not released the pressure of nascent soul stage cultivators, the threatening momentum was gradually revealed like a sword being unsheathed. In the face of tens of thousands of disciples of the Flying Shadow sect and thousands of birds and beasts, they were not at a disadvantage at all. How dare you call yourself father in front of the disciples of the fallen celestial sect? You really deserve to die. The banished king smiled coldly. In his hand, a magic treasure like a jade rui scepter was released. A pillar of golden light soared into the sky and turned into a giant object in mid-air. What? You are disciples of the fallen celestial sect? The goat-horned Shi who was shocked. It looked at the disciples of the fallen celestial sect in disbelief, and a strange expression appeared on its face. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and you're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.